Yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Tuesday. Tuesday, we like to call it Taco Tuesday because, it's always about the food. Hit me some Taco Tuesday.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's Taco Tuesday!
Oh, yeah, Speedy Gonzalez says it. It is indeed Taco Tuesday. You guys, welcome to it. We're going to get you to the end of the week eventually, but right now you're at Tuesday and JP's pushing buttons on the board. Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm great. How about you on this Taco Tuesday?
I'm good. Or did you get meatloaf last night?
I did not. No.
I didn't either. Pruitt's was out of meatloaf.
Really? What?
They had sold out.
That is, I guess it was Meatloaf Monday.
It was Meatloaf Monday at Pruitt's, and yeah, that's a meat and three near the studio here. And man, they make a fine meat and three, but they were out of meatloaf, so it wound up being a chicken finger night.
That's a catastrophe.
Dadgummit.
You can't run out of meatloaf on Meatloaf Monday.
Surely the goodness there won't be out of tacos. All right, we got a great show laid on for you. So I got a guest in studio. He's sitting over here right now watching, waiting for his moment to come on the air with us. But David Robinson comes out of Athens, but y'all are going to be fascinated by his personal story. It's going to occupy part of our time today. It's going to occupy my monologue. But he was at January 6th at the Capitol. He was. And he's got personal recollections to include Ashley Babbitt. So we'll talk about that with David Robinson, who's also, by the way, a new member of the Rightside team. So we're glad to have him around. Anyway, David Robinson is going to be on the air with us. In the meantime, I still got a triple dipper, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, in conjunction with our discussion with David Robinson. Yeah, we're going to talk about some January 6th clarity. There's been a narrative foisted on America for the last few years that was not accurate. It was not. And we're going to talk about the why not. And we're going to talk about people who were actually there. And we're going to talk about the aftermath and what happened and what should never happen again. But yes, we're going to talk about some January 6th clarity. I thought it was worthwhile, especially having David around to get this story out. And so we're going to do it. We're going to run down that road. That's number 1, Triple Dipper, January 6th clarity. And then number 2, I look at what's happening, like these Texas Democrats running away. I look at what's happening with Ilhan Omar and what's her name, Rashida Tlaib, and all. How many times do we see Democrats appear to just actually hate America? And you wonder, why do you run for office? Are you running for office because you hate America? Are you running for office because you want to change America? I got news. I love this country, and I resent the idea that there are people out there who do not choose to support and defend the Constitution. But yeah, there are. That's number 2 on the Triple Dipper, Dems who hate America, and we're going to talk about it. And then number 3, I didn't get to it yesterday. My goal is to get to it today, but I'm going to talk about the nanny state. What does it mean when the government just gets all up in your business, like literally going places it should never go, like never designed by the founders to ever be? Nanny state. Oh my gosh, there's some nanny state politicians out there, and we'll talk about it. Number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on into the Rightside Way opening monologue, and I'll just remind you guys, every single day, the Rightside Way brought to you by attorney Stan McDonald. Stan McDonald, lawyer for over 30 years in North Alabama. Oh, by the way, he's also a longtime conservative and the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way, and I'll tell you more about Stan McDonald here in just a few minutes. All right, so January 6th. Let's talk about this. January 6th, a day that will live in infamy, but not for the reasons that the left so desperately wants it to be. In fact, it may have been just the opposite in many ways. It was a day when justice became a political weapon. It was a day that Democrats still measure as against the events like comparing to January 6, 2021 on a scale next to December 7th, 1941 when Pearl Harbor was attacked. They compare it to things like September 11th, 2001 when al-Qaeda launched terrorist attacks on the nation. Their rhetoric about January 6th has been shocking. It's been galling. It's been nauseating, really. Listen, as an attorney, I know that sometimes the law is in your favor. I know that sometimes the facts are in your favor. I know that every once in a while you get lucky and both are in your favor. But when it comes to January 6th, history will record the left had neither the facts nor the law. All they had was rhetoric. And that rhetoric came without any responsibility. They said whatever they wanted to say, whether it made sense or not. So some years ago, as an attorney, I participated in one of my legal cases from start to finish. It was a case in which one individual had been wrongfully terminated by his employer. That employer had made certain promises, and then when it all came down to it, those employers chose to just axe the employee rather than have to keep their promises. The case turned on a number of legal theories. There was things like at-will employment versus a contract. There was things like the legal premise of taking adverse action against somebody because of their military service. But there was also the question of whether or not the promises made had even induced the former employee just to forego other options in his life, and whether or not that meant fraud. Well, look, it was a legal case, right? But more than that, it was a case that involved actual betrayal. It was a case in which hopes were lifted and then dashed. It was a case in which friendships were ruined. And eventually the employee in that case who had been fired was able to prevail. A simple mediation resulted in that employee, that former employee, actually receiving some things that should have been due to him by the agreement they had already had. But was it the facts or the law? Well, what did it? Was it the overwhelming evidence that lent to the validity of the claims? Was it that the lawyers had such amazing reputations for courtroom prowess? Could it be the judge was known to be favorable towards employment law victims? Well, the answer is no to all the above. The real thing that drove that case to a successful conclusion was, wait for it, shame. You heard me, shame. The real crushing blow in that case was the realization that the former employer, while they might be able to argue legally and they might be able to construe some things in the facts as being certain ways, they knew that the reality was they would have a hard time looking good in front of a jury no matter what they did. At some point, they would have to stand in front of a jury of their peers and try to explain with a straight face why they felt they could get away with the things that they did. Why, even though they might have had some inkling of legal authority in their favor, that they could just ignore the fact that everybody would see that they had lied. Shame is what did it. Shame brought them to their senses. Or at the very least, I would say, shame made them question their ability to get away with it. And you see, there's a lot to be said for allowing a little sunlight to not only expose a stain, but also to wash it out, really. Bringing those matters out of the shadows and laying them bare in the hard light of day. Well, listen, that's where we are with January 6th. January 6th, we were told over and over again by the people on the January 6th Commission and everybody in the left-wing liberal media that January 6th was absolutely an insurrection. It was an attempt to overthrow our government. It was absolutely everybody who was there, no matter who they were, everybody on the scene that day had ill intent. They were violent. Some were even called terrorists. And then in March of 2023, 2 years after the fact, we finally got to see some actual sunlight washing over the story that had been thrust on the American public for the last 2 years. That was the day that Tucker Carlson aired video that had been withheld from public view, even withheld from defense attorneys for the January 6 accused defendants. And the public finally got to see that while there were things that maybe never should have happened, there were also a lot of things that had been misconstrued. Because you know why? Facts. Facts matter. And suddenly you began to wonder, could the January 6th Commission be shamed into actually finding a way to tell the truth? In their case, apparently not. But that's the facts. We began to see facts finally. We began to get hold of them. But then there's the law. We were told over and over again that the law was the law. This was an insurrection. 1,500 people were hunted down around the nation, arrested for crimes against the country. It was a clear attempt, they said, to overthrow the government of the United States. But as a practicing attorney, I know I'm not allowed to get away with shenanigans that I see pundits get away with every day. I have an ethical obligation to the actual law every single day. So were I to try and reframe an issue in the presence of the judge and jury to be something that it's not, well, I'd be subject to like my opponent filing a motion to strike or a motion to dismiss or a motion for sanctions even. So let me lawyer this a bit with you. Let's imagine we're in court and you Rightside ruffians are the jury. It's my goal to allow the evidence to be fully shown, but to do so, I can only do it within the confines of the actual rules of procedure, the rules of evidence, and the rule of law. You see, the law is the law. And one cannot be convicted of something like insurrection if that something does not exist under the law for them. On January 6th, there may have been what the law would refer to as lesser charges. There were crimes potentially like civil disorder or disorderly conduct or entering and remaining in a restricted building or destruction of government property or obstruction of federal proceedings. Maybe those things could be argued against some people, 1,500 of them. But all of those, by the way, are considered lesser included offenses, and they are governed under 18 U.S. Code 371 as crimes against the United States. But charges of insurrection, well, that would have had to have been construed under the dictates of 18 U.S. Code 2383, an entirely different section of the code. Insurrection, in and of itself, is a separate term that carries a separate and distinct import in the eyes of the law. Was there an armed revolt? No. Was it well planned and coordinated in advance? No. Was there intent to overthrow our constitutional form of government and replace it with another one? The answer is still no. It may or may not surprise you, despite the fact that you heard the word insurrection thousands of times on every news outlet in the world. It may or may not surprise you to find out that the thousands of people who were present that day at the Capitol, none were charged with insurrection. None. The press liked the word, but none were charged with insurrection. Only two out of all of them, were charged with what's called seditious conspiracy. 2 people. The vast majority, though, still had their lives upended because they decided to go ahead and create a newly construed interpretation of a separate piece of the code. 18 U.S. Code 1512, which prohibits obstructing a legal proceeding, except that the law was never designed for what they were using it for. And in June of 2024, the next piece of the law argument came down when the Supreme Court of the United States ruled in a landmark case called Fisher v. United States that the Biden Department of Justice had incorrectly applied that statute. And suddenly, like that, overnight, poof, hundreds of January 6 charges and convictions were reduced or dismissed. What you saw was prosecutorial abuse. It's a shame to have to say it, but it's true. It was absolutely prosecutorial abuse many, many times over. And then in February of 2025, Donald Trump finally issued pardons for January 6 defendants, and the matter came to a rest. But not before Joe Biden, on his way out of office, issued a blanket preemptive pardon for all the members of the January 6 Witch Hunt Committee. Look, you got to wonder, why did Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger feel like they needed a pardon? Maybe because for 3 years, they withheld the facts and they allowed the nation to be browbeaten with a narrative of the law that did not match. And there, my friends, lies the rub. Any of the knuckleheads that believes that they can espouse an opinion on this matter that still chooses to use the word insurrection should not be trusted. Not for a second, because they are nothing but feckless word benders who have literally made the choice to abrogate the truth in favor of a sensational catchphrase. And most of the time, the world calls that a lie. It's either that or they're just stupid. Take your pick. But in any event, it still disables their credibility. You see, words actually matter. I don't believe the violent events of January 6 were worthy of support. I don't think anybody should have broken windows or pushed or shoved law enforcement officers. There never should have been things that were broken in the Capitol. People shouldn't be climbing on walls or bum rushing their way into the members of Congress's office. Shouldn't have done it. I don't support that. I also don't support the Antifa attacks on the federal courthouse over and over again in Portland. I also don't support the BLM riots and the largely so-called peaceful demonstrations of 2020, for which nobody went to jail. Great frustration and freedom of speech should never be allowed to combine into destruction of life, limb, and property. But in the aftermath of January 6, investigations, arrests, detentions, charges, and convictions did not match the events of the day for the vast majority who had their lives ruined by it. Over 1,500 people, like I said, were hunted down across the nation, many of whom were just present, 4 of whom committed suicide because of the threats of jail. People lost their jobs, lost their families, lost their freedoms. That should never be allowed to happen again, ever. The events should never have happened, but certainly the weaponization of government should never happen. Politicians and pundits should never be allowed to skew events into something that they were not. January 6, it was a demonstration that advanced into a riot by some, a protest that went places perhaps it never should have gone. But it was not an insurrection, never was. And it should not have been a political football for a party that has no policies and no successes to stand on. You see, here's the thing. We are a nation of laws, and the laws matter. And so do the words we use when we describe them. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, there you have it. The facts and the law both matter. They do. But the pundits didn't want that. The pundits wanted the story. So they took a word out of the law and created their story around it and then said the facts were what they were, but they weren't. It's an amazing thing. And I hope it never happens again. It was like the Salem witch trials on a national scale. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. number 2 for the day, redistricting inside the lines. In other words, I'm giving you the inside scoop on what's happening right now. There's a huge story right now to Texas. Now, listen, I've been a part of some redistricting fights when I was in the state Senate. And Democrats can't stand it when they're not the ones in charge. They will scream and cry and carry on. I watched everything happen in Montgomery. I watched, every attempt at filibustering. I even saw, and this was so egregious, it was unbelievable. There was one individual who was probably going to get a Democrat get drawn out of his own district. And he was so mad that he went up there. He tried to filibuster for a while, and then he finally just asked for the bill to be read at length. Well, the bill being read at length is an old, archaic tactic that dates back to the days when you didn't have copy machines and people could claim, I've not had a chance to actually read the bill, because back then they didn't. And so you can ask for it to be read at length. Well, that rule still applies. It's still on the books. And the left especially loves to use it to slow down the processes. It delays the inevitable, in other words. In other words, you call for the vote, and before the vote, you could say to the president, I request the bill be read at length. And they pretty much have no choice but to do it. So-and-so requests the bill to be read at length. The clerk will begin to read the bill. Reading that bill on the redistricting fight that we were in 2011 was a day and a half in length, I believe. That's unbelievable. It was taking a day, somewhere around 9 hours into it. The guy agreed to go ahead and remove his request, and so it was shut off. It doesn't mean we didn't lose 9 hours though of legislative time. It's an archaic tactic. But then there's what's going on in Texas. So Texas right now is in the midst of a redistricting. I'll tell about how that's going in a minute. But the Democrats' means of handling it is to flee the Capitol. I kid you not. It reminds me of the scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, when the killer rabbit comes out of the cave. Run away, run away! And they literally turn and just run away. That's and they're so proud of themselves. They're bold. They're taking a strong stand against Texas and Trump. Like, okay, Trump's not there drawing the lines. Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, here's the other thing. Redistricting does not happen overnight. It doesn't. Redistricting is a big, long, drawn-out process. There are people who are paid experts who have to come in and draw the maps. And here's the other thing. State constitution requires they be drawn based upon population. In other words, you can't draw everybody into one district and leave somebody with a district that has 10 people in it. It doesn't work like that. They all have to be roughly the same size in terms of population within about a 2 to 3 or 4% margin of error. I mean, there's going to be onesies and twosies. You're not going to have an exact same number in every one. And you also try to keep certain, communities together. That's why in the last redistricting in Alabama, we drew I wasn't part of that one, but Alabama drew what it thought was a fair and reasonable set of congressional districts in that case. And it kept whole communities together. And the court got involved for reasons I'll talk about in a minute. The court got involved and said, no, Alabama, we don't like your drawings. Do them again. And Alabama said, nope, we're not going to do it again. We're done. So the court drew one for us. Now, it's being challenged. It's still underway right now. But the congressional district lines were redrawn by the court. And what did they do? They drew one that was decidedly Democrat, and they split Mobile in half. Really, really angered the citizens of Mobile. And I understand that. Now, some might say, well, that means Mobile's got 2 congresspeople. They didn't want 2. They wanted 1 like they'd always had. So Mobile is now split in half. You can be literally across the street from somebody voting different than you in the congressional races. But redistricting is a huge deal, and it gets all kinds of attention. But what's happening in Texas right now is like a clown show. I'm in Dipper number 2, and we'll see how far we can get with this, but redistricting inside the lines. And I mentioned before that redistricting, let me recap what that is first in order to lay the stage. I know most of y'all already know, but for those who don't, I'm just going to say it real quick. Redistricting, whether it be your state legislative races, whether it be judicial races, whether it be congressional races, every state has to have them broken up into districts. And they have to have those, whether it be House or Senate, they have to, in the state level, they have to have congressional races. They have to have basically the lay of the land. You have to know who to vote for. And it's all based upon population. Every state is allocated certain members of Congress. We are allowed to have 7 in Alabama. That's based on population. But and we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just, I mean, like, man, just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, text lines are open. Text it. Tell me what you're thinking. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. That's the number. Text us your thoughts. Coming up here in a few minutes, we'll actually talk with David Robinson, who's in studio with me, about his experiences going to the January 6 events. And what he saw in the mix and what he saw or thought afterwards. First, let me tell you about attorney Stan McDonald, though. Yes, indeed. Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. Look, I know Stan personally. I was actually talking to him last night, texting with him this morning, I believe. We know each other pretty well. I think the world of him. He is a good attorney. He's also a longtime conservative, y'all. He's like an OG ruffian from way back. So Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients as an attorney in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say that Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your attorney, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So that being said, if you need an attorney in North Alabama, I'm going to tell you how to reach him. You ready? Phone number's coming. Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. Here's his number, 256-479-3020. That's 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And I don't have to do a disclaimer anymore. I still lean towards the disclaimer, JP. I just like, I need just,
you can still do one, but not,
no representation made. The quality legal services are like bad because they're really good. So how about that? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mama. Thank you very much. Let me get a few text messages before we hit the break. Nofre from Lexington, Alabama says, Brother Phil, I've seen Democrats flustered and aggravated before, but they are running in the streets and crapping their pants, so confused on what to hate. Wow. It says they hate Russia, Epstein, tariffs, stock market, redrawing the lines, Obama administration, subpoena, January 6th blowing up. Making able-bodied work. It's a glorious time to be a Trump supporter and a red-blooded American. Thank you, Nofre. Kimball from Harvest says, Phil, shame can be a good motivator. Unfortunately, the left lacks a lot of shame. That prevents them from admitting many of their claims, like President Biden is sharp and competent, or our borders are secure, or January 6th was a rebellion that nearly toppled the government. No amount of shame will ever get the left to admit that these and many other things are not true. There you go. And then last one for the break, Allie from Athens checks in, says, I wish there were a way that criminal members of the media industry could be criminally and constitutionally accountable for what their mouths and pens have done to people. Agree with you, sister. All right, we're taking a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. 7 are then broken down. And then the same is going for the state legislative races, House and Senate. You have to have them broken down by population. House is smaller. There's more members of the House. In Alabama, there's 105 members of the state House, and there's 35 members of the state Senate. Every Senate district does not look the same geographically. I used to chide my friend, Bill Holtzclaw, who was a state senator from Madison. It'd take him 10 minutes to drive across his district. You know why? Because the population in Madison was so condensed. So he got his population base from a smaller geographic area. Me, it'd take me 45 minutes sometimes to drive across the district. I would literally have to drive to Timbuktu to see the people up in Broomtown in Cherokee County. Very rural in some parts of my former state Senate district. So all that to say, it's based on population. When you draw those lines, there are experts that come in and they help you, and it's based upon the census. Everything's allowed to be done based upon the 10-year census. So the first time we did it was in 2011, based upon the 2010 census. You remember, we thought Alabama was going to lose some seats, and then lo and behold, we grew, whereas California and New York lost seats in Congress because they lost population base. Alabama stayed in a good position, and we kept all 7 of our seats in Congress. Some states are huge, and they'll have, 20, 30, 40 members of Congress like California. Some states like Alabama have 7. You got others that have a couple. But the reality is it's drawn based upon population. And there are rules to that. And people like to talk about gerrymandering. Every time you draw the lines is not a gerrymander. Sometimes you draw the lines, and I will say this, when you draw the lines, you have to draw them by population. So don't try to tell me you don't have enough, because you know you do. The question is, do you like what you got? That's where the fuss comes in. The fuss is always about, well, you tried to make it more Republican or you tried to make it more Democrat. Well, who's in charge? Elections have consequences. I'm sorry. For 136 straight years, the Democrats held control of the Alabama State House. Guess how they drew the lines? Well, you got behind closed doors in your smoky back rooms and you drew up your own districts. Did we? Did we really? Because it looks like, you know what? The state kind of turned red in its voting, and most of y'all got voted out anyway.
Are the back rooms actually smoky?
I've never seen a smoky back room.
Okay.
I've seen places where you look like they might have smoked back in the day.
Yeah. Okay.
But I was never in a smoky back room.
I just always hear that. And I think it's
I have been in a few back rooms.
I figured you have.
The back rooms do exist. You know what? That's where a lot of business gets done. That doesn't mean bad things. Sometimes it does. Doesn't always mean bad things. All right. That's redistricting. And you have to do it. And you have to do it. By law, you have to do it. The funny thing is, it's being done and then it's being screamed about because it wasn't a certain way. Let's talk about Alabama for a minute. Alabama had a major case. We redrew after the 2020 census, the state House and Senate district lines and the congressional lines. We were told all along that Alabama is a racist state. You're going to have pre-clearance. You're under the Voting Rights Act, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. We're going to make sure you don't draw those race-conscious lines to protect all your white voters. And then what happens? Well, then we don't use race. And then they tell us, you didn't put enough black people in those districts. What? After 2011, when we drew the lines, the screams were that we had stacked and packed, they called it. Stacking and packing black people into certain districts. Really? I know we didn't. That's where they live. What do you want us to do? That's where they live. If there's more black people in Greene County than there are in, say, Madison County, I can't help that. That's where they live. No, you stacked and packed them. That way they're diminished in quality. They cannot impact the broader whole. So now you want us to use race to spread them out? Really? And then what happened in 2020? And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast US of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This one, whew, I mean, it goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. Benning! And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And oh, by the way, that's just the radio. Thank you very much. And then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web and live streaming the show every single day, looking inside the studios, even seeing what shirt we're wearing. Live streaming on places like Facebook and X and YouTube and Rumble and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then all you guys that podcast after the fact, we see all of you. We know where you are. We thank you. We appreciate you. The fact that you guys catch this show in a variety of ways means the world to us, and you're the reason why we do what we do. And I try to say it several times per show. So thank you very much. All right, listen, you heard my monologue a moment ago. Some of y'all can be texting in right now if you want to, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. January 6th, you may think, Phil, is that old news? It's really not. I mean, it's a very new news. There are still things right now. There are still people recovering their lives. The pardons were just issued by President Trump just in the last few months. And there's still, in my opinion, a lot to get sorted. And I think we're going to start seeing some measure of accountability. And we'll see. We'll see. But I thought it'd be interesting. I've never had anybody on my show who was there that day. So I want to bring somebody on right now. So David Robinson's here in studio right now. David hails from the Athens region, and David was actually there that day. Oh, by the way, David is actually now also assisting us with sales here at Rightside. But David Robson, welcome to the Rightside studio, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate being here.
Well, appreciate you being here. And so you were there on January 6, 2021.
I was. Me and my wife, we were both there.
Okay. This is fascinating. I mean, I've watched any number of stories on it. I've read things on it. I've spoken about it. I've never talked to somebody who was there. So I guess I just want to go from soup to nuts here and figure out, what that was all like, and then what your thoughts were after the fact. All
right. Sounds good.
Let's break it down. I mean, so you and your wife, how'd y'all wind up getting? I mean, did you look like 3 weeks in advance, said, let's plan a trip, honey? What do you want to do? And this is a big second honeymoon. I mean, what was this? Was this like a lark, or was it a planned out event?
It was not planned at all. My wife actually pushed me to go.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes. So we were living in Athens at the time.
All right.
We moved to Athens in June 2020. We actually moved because COVID shut down Maryland so bad.
Yeah.
It was beyond cabin fever. We got to go.
So you were from Maryland. Okay.
My wife's from Maryland.
Okay. Gotcha.
I'm from all over because I'm an Army brat.
Gotcha.
So, but we were visiting family back in Maryland, where my wife's family is from, around Christmas time, Christmas and New Year's. And she saw that January 6th was happening. She saw the announcement. She saw the speech lineup of who was going to be speaking. And she's like, let's go. I mean, we're an hour away. We were outside of Annapolis. Let's go. And I'm like, I mean, all this stuff going on in 2020 is really fresh.
Yeah. The summer of love, all the riots, everything.
Yes, exactly. I mean, do I want to take my wife somewhere that could be a riot and you get boxed in and you're not getting out? I mean, I know it's DC, but still it was really fresh. I mean, a lot went on in 2020.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So your wife has the idea, first of all, but then y'all just decided to get on a train, you drive in, what'd you do?
We took a train.
All right.
So I was thinking the traffic would be horrible. It would be rough getting in,
You're
getting
probably
out.
right.
So we took a train right outside of 495. First train. We were on the first train available. So we left really early. We was at the train station and we took it to downtown DC, which is probably about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from the White House.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've done those stations many times. So you guys get in there. Was there a crowd? Like, were you riding? Was the train full of people wearing MAGA hats? I mean, what was the deal? Was there like a crowd already forming?
No, there wasn't. I don't remember that much of the train ride there. I don't think there was that many people on the train. Very few, maybe a few commuters. It was still COVID, so it was still lockdown procedures.
Oh yeah.
And I don't even really remember masks. I brought mine. I was more nervous about other people getting it. That's just my heart for other people. We didn't know it was still
right.
And in Maryland, it was so bad. It was a big topic. We didn't want people falling out and dying.
So crowds weren't huge yet, but the crowds got big while you were there though, right?
Yes, they did.
You got out there on the Washington Mall?
Yes. In between the Washington Monument and the White House, they had a stage set up in front of the White House. In those two areas, we got there probably before 8:00.
Oh, wow. You got there early.
We did.
What time did the speeches start? I don't even remember.
I'm not even sure. I think the first speech was maybe 10:30.
Okay.
Something like that.
So how close to the stage were you?
100 yards, 200 yards.
I guess in a big event like that, that's not really far away. You're at a decent spot.
Correct. Yes.
All right. So lineup of speakers, including President Trump, right?
Yes. President Trump was speaking. We got there really early. There wasn't as many people, but they were trickling in. There was a lot of people trickling in. The space that we had in front of the Washington Monument started getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And there was a lot of people.
So let me ask you this. There's been a lot of talk, on the left, and we'll unpack it more here in a minute, but there's been a lot of talk on the left about, the angry mobs and the attempts to overthrow the government and all that. What was the mood of the crowd as you're standing there? Was it an angry crowd? Was it a crowd that was jazzed up? Was it a crowd that was just there to see what was going on? What'd you see?
It was a crowd. To me, it was one of the most patriotic events I've ever been to.
Okay.
I've been to the 8808 rally. I think it was the Tea Party rally,
okay,
or it might have been a pro-life rally. And it was everybody there just to. For me, I was there to pray. I was there to pray, protest, we didn't agree with the vote,
Yeah.
but the crowd was chanting USA. I jumped in with them. I mean, we're just there was massive flags, probably I don't just a rough estimate, 100-foot by 200-foot flag that I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 people had to hold on to and going through the crowd. And
Yeah.
people were making space for it was cheering on America. It was patriotic. It was we were there to honor our president, but also to protest that we didn't agree with what was going on.
Yeah, with the way the vote went down and all that.
Yes.
JP's got some pictures he's putting up on the screen right now, and you took these pictures too, am I right?
I did.
Yeah. And some of these are videos and all that. So, I mean, I see signs saying "Stop the Steal," but was there anybody in there yelling "Down with the USA, let's overthrow the government"? I mean, did you see any weapons? I mean, was it like that at all?
No, I didn't see any weapons. I saw a lot of riot gear. I saw quite a few bulletproof vests. A lot.
Really?
Yes.
People came suited up a little bit?
They came ready because they weren't sure what was going to happen as far as rioting, as far as the other riots that were going on that year.
Because of the way the BLM have been doing all that?
Yes.
So you don't think they were there like ready for their own riot? They were there in case things got ugly because of counter protesters?
Exactly.
All right. At some point, did you get to know other people in the crowd that you didn't know before?
I did. Yes. There was a couple of people that were getting close to us. Ashley Babbitt was one of them. My uncle Dennis talked to her more. I've even got a video with her talking in the background. She's talking to him. He was a Navy man. He was on a couple of submarines during the Cold War.
Yeah.
And but he was talking to her, and I talked with her for a little bit. I don't think I prayed with her, but I got to know her story, that she was from California. She was Air Force, and she said California was more red than the media makes it out to be.
It's amazing how much red is in California, but it's overwhelmed by these big cities like LA and Oakland and San Diego and all that. But so Ashley Babbitt, all right, we'll talk about her more in a minute. But I mean, she's one of the tragedies of the day, obviously. But before we get to that point, you're in this crowd, right? And this is the crowd that we've heard about, we've seen pictures of. Your pictures keep coming up on the screen periodically as we're talking for our live stream audience. Is there ever a time in the crowd where you personally felt threatened by the crowd? Was it scary to be there, or did you feel like you were among people of a like mind?
Not at the beginning. Before the speeches, I didn't, other than just, hey, this could erupt at any point because of the past riots. But before the speeches, I didn't feel much tension or nervousness. It was more patriotic. Let's cheer. Let's, hear, USA, USA. But after the speeches and the herd moved to the Capitol building, that's where I started feeling a little bit more tension. And there was you could hear a string of voices. Mike Pence didn't do it. Mike Pence didn't do it. Mike Pence didn't do it. And this was, I don't know the timing, maybe 11, 12 o'clock, something like that.
Yeah.
And then it's when it just felt a little.
You feel the tension in the crowd?
It felt different. And it was a little bit later on when nobody's cell phones were working. They were shut off. Whatever they were using, technology was shut off.
Wow.
So from the train to the White House, no cell phone signals, gone for everyone. But when the tensions changed after everybody was saying that Vice President Mike Pence didn't do it, that
meaning certify the vote.
Yes,
yeah,
correct.
He certified the vote. Yeah,
exactly. Everyone got a notification. Everybody's phone started alarms going off. And so nobody's phone's working. All of a sudden it goes off and it says the National Guard is coming in.
Who said that?
The alert. So it was a national alert. It was emergency alert. First alert, whatever system they were using to get to everybody's phone was the National Guard is coming in. It's time to disperse.
So I don't recall that. So at what point were you already at the Capitol building when everybody got this notice on their phones that the National Guard's coming?
Yes. And that could have been after the first person went into the Capitol.
All right. So let me ask you this before we go to the break. You can see how radio flies by. I mean, we're talking and I just looked over and realized it's almost time for a break already. Real quickly before we go to the break, Was there ever a time during the speeches where you felt like you were being told to go do something destructive or rioting at the, did any of the speakers, including President Trump, did they ever say to you, get on down there and tear something up, get on down there and interrupt government? Did that ever happen?
No, not at all. It felt completely peaceful. Like, we're going to stand up for what we believe in. And I would say a third of the people probably couldn't make it up the steps if they wanted to. They were disabled veterans. They were just there to, support our president and say that we don't believe in the vote.
Wow. All right. This is fascinating to me. All right. We're taking a break right now. I've never had anybody sit here and tell me their firsthand experience of being there. So David Robinson's in studio with us right now. David Robinson was at January 6th. We're going to keep talking to him when we get back from the break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Drew the lines. You didn't put enough black people in certain districts. Wait. What's the rule? What's the rule? Is the rule that we can, consider race, or can we not consider race? And it's the most asinine thing. Well, basically, you're danged if you do, danged if you don't, because Democrats are going to sue no matter what you do. So you go ahead and you just do it. So they drew the lines in 2020 in Alabama, and it went to court. And the 3-judge panel of the 11th Circuit decided that we didn't, I say we, I wasn't there, but you know what I mean, that Alabama didn't draw good lines. And so they had to go back and do it again. The interesting thing is, Alabama decided to go ahead and say, you know what? No, we drew what we drew. If you don't like it, then fine. Tell us what you want us to do, but it's not going to be redrawing the lines. I thought that was rather bold, to be honest with you. And it wasn't like a defying the orders of the court. It was more along the lines of saying, if we go back and draw again, we're just going to draw the same thing. So what do you want to do? So the court drew it for us. And we now have Shamari Figures as a member of Congress who never could have gotten elected in what used to be the district he's now in. We now have 2 Democrats where we used to have 1. Why is that? Because the court got involved and the court decided to make sure that it favored race and, oh, by the way, we really believe favored Democrats. I had John Wall on the show from the Alabama Republican Party who said, let's be honest, this was a district drawn to give Democrats more representation in state politics in Alabama. Wow. And as a result, it split Mobile in half and it drew lines that you look at and go, what, really? And that's what it took for the court to decide that it had something that, I don't know, met the new race standard we were told didn't exist. All right, where is that thing now? Well, Alabama eventually agreed to go ahead and accept these redistricting lines drawn by the court and to not challenge them again as a state until we get to the next census in 2030. Okay. Thought it was over? Sorry, it's not. We've got a situation right now where the Justice Department, U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, Prim Escalona, just filed something saying, hey, we don't need more pre-clearance because there's now another challenge because Democrats are never satisfied. They don't want to stick with what they got. They want to demand that not only do we stick with what the court drew, but that we have to, as a state, submit to what's known as pre-clearance once again. What does that mean? Pre-clearance is when you say, hey, state of Alabama, we just don't trust you. So you've got to send your lines to the federal government and we'll take 60 days to review them before you're allowed to implement them for a vote. And we'll tell you whether you're good people or bad people or not. It's really big government. It's really awful. It's really not necessary. We're really way beyond all that. But the plaintiffs in the case that sued about the lines in the first place have now brought another demand for pre-clearance, and arguments have been heard. Well, the U.S. Attorney's Office is saying that's not necessary. Could we please stop this? And asking the court, filing a brief in the situation, asking the court to not give credence to the argument that we need pre-clearance. All right. Do you see what I'm saying? When I say all this, I'm about to dive into what's happening in Texas, but I think you need to know that we have active litigation going on right now, even in Alabama. We have active litigation going on pretty much all over the nation. The Democrats especially are never satisfied. By the way, they are the worst gerrymanderers in the world. Have you ever looked at Illinois? Have you ever looked at their districts? They make no sense. They draw long, thin fingers in order to reach through to get a few more Democrat voters and bring them into a district just to make it, I don't know, blue. They're scared to death of the idea that if they drew lines that looked like they made sense, listen, I've been in the room when they talked about where the lines were going to fall. I've also fussed. I have fussed about my own district. Why are you taking my St. Clair County people? If you're going to do that, then by God, quit splitting my Cherokee County people. And I've had those discussions before. I have. But in the end, you know what it comes down to? A plan gets published and a plan gets voted on by the legislature. And once the legislature has spoken, remember, elections have consequences. That means technically the representation of the people of the state have now spoken. And yet the Dems are never satisfied with that process. Alabama's going through it like right now, again. We'll see where it goes. In the meantime, Texas is quite the story. We'll get back from this break. I'll tell you more about it. Maybe even have a sound clip to talk to hear from what the actual state legislature just did. But yes. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so we're sitting back here in studio right now talking to David Robinson. He was there on the events of January 6th. He's a new member of the Rightside team. He's going to be doing sales with us. And we just got a chance to sit down together and just sort of go through all the details of what he's going to be doing with sales. But at the same time, I learned as we're getting to know each other most recently that, oh, by the way, he was there January 6th. And I thought, well, by golly, I've been wanting to do a summary of that event because the pardons are still pretty fresh. And in my opinion, we're watching all the Russia collusion stuff fall apart. We're seeing all the other narratives coming out of the Biden administration era that obviously weren't grounded in truth and were designed in some ways to undermine or at the very least to weaponize. And I think, you know what? I don't think we're through here in the end of, hopefully, the end of accountability for what was done to people because of the day of January 6th. Were there some things that happened that were wrong? Yes, there were. Was all 1,500 people deserving of having their lives upended? Was it worth turning the entire FBI inward on this whole case and setting aside investigations that were more prescient and timely and in need of attention? No. And I look at all of this and think, my gosh. And then the liberal media just beat us up for years over it. And then you had the whole Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney betrayal, leaving the Republicans behind to go ahead and join the Nancy Pelosi Jan 6 commission. The whole thing was just a debacle. That being said, David Robinson's right here with me.
Yes,
he was there. All right. So, David, let me ask you, the speeches are concluded, and there's this sort of human wave of walking down the street. I mean, was it like watching a zombie movie where they come running in a pack, or was it those people walking orderly down there? What was the deal?
They were walking orderly. It wasn't like I know I mentioned the herd. It wasn't like The Walking Dead or anything like that as far as a herd, but it was people helping people get there because there was a lot of disabled vets because I talked to a lot of them.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of people in wheelchairs. You got a lot of people a lot of flags. And it was a peaceful walk from the Washington Monument, the White House, where everybody was gathered, to the Capitol building. And there was
there security? Did you see security typically you would see the Capitol Police and the Park Police and others, be out in a presence around the area, setting up barricades and, wearing uniform. Were you seeing any of that anywhere? Was that just like gone?
Gone. I didn't hardly
Really?
see any security. Probably, I'm sure there was around President Trump's stage. I'm sure the security was huge there.
Secret Service at the very least. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But when I got off the train early that morning, I only saw 2, maybe 3 guards at the Treasury. When they're always there, but no police, 0 police.
Wow.
And they know because if you're tracking phones, you're tracking possibly 1 million people coming to DC.
Yeah.
Around every every decision maker for the country right there in one spot at one time, and you've got 1 million people, and there's no security presence for hours. I didn't see a single guard except for at the Treasury.
Of course, the National Guard never showed up. But you got an alert. And who issued the alert? Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure.
Is it like an EMA kind of thing?
Yes, that's what it seemed like.
Wow. All right. So you guys, as in mass, are walking towards the U.S. Capitol from the mall. So you're walking from the Washington Monument straight down to the Capitol. And then how long was the walk for you, like getting there? What do you think?
20 minutes.
Okay, 20 minutes.
Something like, because there's a lot of people.
Oh, that's right. There's a lot of people in the length of the mall too.
Yes.
All right. So you get down there to the Capitol building. And is that when the signal came through on your phones about National Guard?
No, it was probably about an hour later. We kind of settled down. We actually went through a barricade. I didn't realize it at the time because a large group of people had already gone through. But it looked like a barricade that was set up for the inauguration.
Okay.
So they were just making it just looked like simple barricades.
It wasn't really slowing anybody down.
Exactly. No guards at it.
Oh, okay.
Maybe there was earlier when the first, group of people got there. Maybe, I don't know if they might have been 15 minutes ahead of me or 5.
You see anybody getting rowdy?
No, nobody getting rowdy. But it was a few megaphones getting some people stirred up. There was definitely some horns, some masks. There was a group of people with the different gear that was. There was actually a line of people walking through the crowd, and they were saying, "Follow us to go in." And this was after everyone was saying the vote wasn't certified by Vice President Mike Pence.
Okay.
So there was a line of guys and ladies, and I don't know, but they were marching.
Just in civilian clothes, just like, okay.
Well, civilian clothes and possibly riot gear, and there was definitely a guy with horns on his head.
Oh yeah, you saw the shaman.
Yes.
Yes. So there's some folks saying, "Come on, we're going inside. Going inside." All
yes.
Right, so
exactly.
All right. That's a little that takes on a slightly different feel.
Yes.
What were you and your wife thinking at this point? I mean, were you looking at this going, I don't know about this?
I was looking at it like that. Yes. So let's keep our distance so we can see what's going on, but let's get ready to get out of here, because if this crowd starts packing in and we can't get out, it could get really bad.
Well, we're going to take a break right now. We're already at another break. We're going to come back from this break. And here's the thing. He was there that day, but you did leave before things got into madness, yes. Right? I say madness. It wasn't like total madness. There were a lot of people who walked around taking selfies inside the Capitol. But before people began going inside, you and your wife headed out. Am I right?
We did. Yep.
Yeah. All right. We'll take that when we get back. But we'll also talk about the aftermath. What's it like knowing that people everywhere are being hunted for a place that you were at? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Redistricting is like, a fight in Texas. Dems don't fight, they run. We'll talk about it more in a minute. Got a piece here off of LifeSet, Dateline today. Supreme Court signals an interest in a major voting rights case that could reshape House control. What does this mean? Redistricting again. So redistricting, there's a case called Louisiana v. Calais. So the outcome of this case is said to be able to carry nationwide implications, including the possibility that, you could see the redrawing of dozens of House districts around the nation, shifting the whole political landscape. Here's the deal. At the center of that whole case, and this is interesting that we're watching right now, is the Supreme Court has not taken it up officially, but they did ask the Solicitor General to kind of weigh in on it and give them thoughts, which means that they've expressed interest. At the center of the case is whether that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act permits a race-conscious creation of congressional districts. In other words, what Alabama was just told we had to do. See, here's the thing. The case that I'm talking about that Alabama dealt with is called Allen v. Milligan. And in Allen v. Milligan, the Supreme Court weighed in, but they left a piece undone. And they do that a lot. They get to where they don't want to decide everything. So they, unless you ask specifically, or they might take up an issue and say that finding that issue now precludes any need to deal with the other issues. The end result is, in the case for Alabama, Allen v. Milligan, the justices preserved the current interpretation of Section 2, but they left open the question of how far race-based considerations can actually go. And that's a big deal. They left this nebulous piece there where they kind of questioned it, but they declined to respond at that point or answer at that point. Their opinion stopped short. Now what we're looking at, though, is Louisiana v. Calais takes that exact issue, and they're expressing interest in taking up Louisiana v. Calais. We'll find out soon, but here's the thing. If the court winds up doing a broad ruling on this thing and decides that you just can't, you know what, you got to stop using race. You can't say one way or the other. You can't say race this, race not that. You can't. If they go down that road, there are some political analysts that are saying that the ripple effect would result in Republicans gaining as many as 20 to 25 seats in the House, depending upon how states respond to it. I can tell you right now, Alabama will respond. We'll start redrawing lines. Now, what's happening in Texas? Texas is like a goat rodeo right now, man. Texas has turned into a clown show. It is a circus. So one thing I will say, Alabama Daily News, we had Todd Stacy on earlier. I saw an article on his site. One thing I did not know was, I will say this, Texas Republicans have gone down a road that people didn't expect. Redistricting, they do that, right? Yeah, every 10 years. They decided to do an extra one. What? Yes. They're calling it a mid-cycle redistricting. Pray tell, how does this work? How can you do that? Well, because the law says they shall redraw every 10 years, but it doesn't say they're confined just to 10 years. And the interpretation now by the Texas Republicans is they can do it every year if they want to. Well, now, so in this whole reapportionment process or redistricting, state constitutions, set the things in motion. So state constitutions will govern. Texas Constitution says you have to redistrict after every census, but it doesn't say you can't do it more. So what Texas has done is stepped into the role of being the foil. They are the ones saying, hey, you know what? I think we're going to do that now. Because we can. And the Democrats are freaking out. Democrats are having a complete come apart because they didn't think of it when they had the chance. But Democrats are like, you can't do this. Yes, actually, they can. And they are. And they've drawn it. So what the Democrats do? They fled. You have to have a quorum to vote. So in order to prevent the vote on the, by the way, this is not new. They've been drawing these lines for a while. I started to say earlier, I've been in the rooms where they're drawing. It takes months, literally months to draw these things up. You can't do them overnight. There's going to be hearings. There's going to be experts involved. There's going to be mapping. There's going to be, any number of census scrutiny. There's going to be all kinds of things have to happen. And Democrats are just now going, but you can't do that. Well, we are, and we have been for months. Where you been? And they have now fled the state, not just the capital. They have fled the state in order to avoid allowing a quorum to be called for the vote. It's unbelievable. They are so in the minority in Texas. It's like Alabama in many ways. They are out of 150 members of the House, only a third of those are Democrats. And they have now fled to various states. Most of them went to Illinois, which, by the way, the deep irony there is that Illinois Democrats are the gerrymander kings. They've been like drawing crazy lines in Illinois for God knows how long. Probably mafia run half the time. So you've got the Democrats fleeing to Governor Pritzker's, take care of us, Governor Pritzker. We need, and then they're going online on their social medias. You can see them. It's all like, we're taking a stand. No, you're not. You ran away. If you want to take a stand, go back and do what you were elected to do. You weren't elected to run away when a vote you didn't like came up. What happens next time when there's a budget bill you don't like? What happens when there's a tax raise you don't like? What happens when, do you just run away when you don't like it? Is that the way this works? My God, what soldier gets that kind of mission in life? You don't like it? Run away. Democrats in Texas, it's a clown show, man. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it when we get back. Like, I don't know, are they going to go to jail? Governor Abbott just weighed in. I'll tell you about it. I'm doing this redistricting thing. I got to tell you, maybe one of the funniest articles I've seen. LifeSet again says that U.S. Representative Jasmine Crockett is freaking out because she saw the lines and says, I do not currently reside in my district based upon the plan that has been drawn. Cracks me up, man, when you surprise me with the panicking
You
call.
could have just replaced the quote with that sound. Pretty much what it was.
Said the map, if approved, would redraw 5 Democrat-held seats and create potentially 3 new Republican-leaning districts, while also shifting 2 additional districts into Republican-favored territory. I mean, I understand the Democrats are mad. Story here also on Axios. Phil, did you go to Axios? I did. I go these places so you don't have to. Over 50 Texas Democrats fled the state Sunday in an attempt to prevent Republicans from holding a vote in the state house. Here's my question. Are you just never going to go home? Because I'm pretty sure they can convene the legislature, just said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to hour number 2 on a Taco Tuesday. Having a fascinating conversation. I think it's fascinating. I hope some of y'all do too. I look back at January 6th and I think, good gosh, a day that has been like bandied about by the left as being like nearly the downfall of our entire country, like life as we knew it, like cats and dogs living together. I mean, it was chaos, apparently, according to the left. And yet, were there things that happened that were wrong? Yes. But was it madness? Was it one of those things that should go down in infamy? Not to the extent that they made it out to be, in my opinion. And it certainly was not an insurrection because there was no attempt to overthrow government. That's why nobody was charged with insurrection. That's the part of the kicker there. But I'm in studio right now with David Robinson. Let's spend a couple more minutes here, David. And by the way, I got a question that I'll lead off with from one of the listeners, David at Bucky's. That's him. He's David at Bucky's.
Yes.
But David at Bucky's says, ask David Robinson, what was the purpose or the plan once they reached the Capitol? So you guys are leaving the speech area. You're walking the 20 minutes down to the Capitol building. What was everybody thinking was going to happen when they got there? I mean, what was the plan?
More speeches.
Okay.
So that as far as I know, that was the plan, would be more speeches and just have a peaceful protest of,
like stand there with the flags and
yes.
say we want it back.
Yes. Keep being patriotic and showing that we're here that we don't agree with the vote.
Okay. All right. And then you got there and tension began to rise. You and I were talking off the air about what it feels like when you can feel the mood of a crowd begin to change.
Yes.
And you did feel the mood of the crowd begin to change.
I did. When Vice President Mike Pence, when I kept hearing that over and over from people,
he certified the vote. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't do it. That's what I heard. He didn't do it.
He didn't. Yeah. He didn't.
People were hoping that he wouldn't. He would. I don't know what that is.
He would not certify the vote.
Right.
Yeah, but he chose to.
Right.
All right. So that happened, and the mood of the crowd, the murmuring began.
Yes. Yes.
And then you said earlier you saw like a group of folks saying, "Follow us. We're going inside."
I did.
All right. Was Capitol Police anywhere around at this point?
Not at this point. There were a few you could see on the steps and around the border of the Capitol, and then maybe 15 minutes after I saw that line of people that were saying, let's go in, and they were pushing through the crowd. It felt like they were being a little bit more aggressive exactly than the rest of the crowd. And I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes later, so I saw the smoke grenade. And
oh, really?
Yes. And
was it tear gas or smoke? What was it?
I'm not sure. It wasn't close enough for me to tear up, but
yeah,
it was probably 200 yards away, probably a good 5-iron. But that was also maybe I need to watch my back with my wife here and get ready to go.
Okay. Didn't you say during the break too, flashbang grenades?
I thought so. I heard the noise and saw the smoke. So it could have been from the gas, or it could have been two different things. But it felt to me like they were trying to deter that line of people that was saying, let's go in.
Now I know you've told me already that you actually left at this pretty soon around this time, but at what point did you decide it's time to go? When did you look at your wife and say, honey, we're out of here? Or
yes.
What's the story there?
I looked at my wife and my uncle and I was like, hey, do we need to go? Is this the cue? And after we got that alert from the emergency system about the National Guard, I'm like, I want to make sure the trains don't get shut down, because if it gets bad, they're going to shut the trains down. And that was, not that I wouldn't have minded camping out in DC, for a couple of days protesting, but I don't know if I want my wife there in the middle of all that chaos. If it would have transpired like the rest of the year, 2020.
Did you know anybody that went inside?
I met a father and his daughter somewhere out Midwest. I'm not sure what city, but we met at the train station before getting on, and she was a teenager, and they were peaceful. I'm not sure why they went in, but it felt like they acted like it was their American right to go in peacefully. I'm not sure if that's allowed during that day or if that makes sense as far
The
as
videos the news showed us over and over again were people, some of them were doing things they didn't need to be doing, pushing back on police officers, forcing their way through doors. And then yet later on, 2 years later, when Tucker Carlson got all of the footage, we saw a lot of people having the doors opened for them and like the guy, the shaman, was actually being escorted around to different rooms. And it is just the weirdest dynamic to see the actual true videos and go, wait a minute, I thought everybody was violent.
right.
They're walking around taking selfies and laughing.
Yeah.
And some of them are taking selfies with the guards.
Right. Peaceful protest.
So I guess, one of my points in this is, were there people who did some things they didn't need to be doing? Yeah. And some of them probably did some things that they need to go to jail for. But by God, 1,500 people didn't.
No.
That's me not having been there. All right. All right. So you guys left, but I got to ask you, the word got out that the FBI, this was like priority number one. There was no other mission in life for the FBI at that point that seemed to take precedent over this. And I'm talking about every field office was being tasked for what we know. The January 6th Commission was stood up. They were checking cell phone records to see whose numbers were bouncing off of cell phone towers. We're finding out stories about people who were arrested who were merely present and didn't even go inside. One of the guys who was jailed who wasn't even there that day, but they believed he was an inciter of people who were. Inciter. That being said, did you ever have any concerns about the FBI coming and knocking on your door?
I did multiple times. I try to be low key as much as possible, but I didn't share anything really until today. As far as pictures and videos, this stuff that you're seeing, no one has seen other than if I showed them in person. But I was very low key about showing anybody, even friends and family, because if I show somebody, maybe they're going to be, tracked and traced and get their door knocked on by the FBI. I've got a family, 3 kids and a wife, and I want to provide for them and not be taken away for a year or years and leave them stranded. And yes, I was nervous multiple times, but they never contacted me, and I'm pretty sure I've got footage that no one's ever seen.
Well, that being said, you did find out later on that Ashley Babbitt was shot and killed that day.
Yes.
How was that, knowing that someone who you stood there and talked to was the only person who was actually killed on scene?
It broke my heart and made me feel grateful that we didn't go in. But it broke my heart. I mean, she was a serviceman and Air Force, and it didn't make any sense. But yes, she got riled up. I mean, she was at a protest, but was
she armed?
Not that I know of. No.
Yeah.
I believe there was a lot of people there that was armed that could have used their weapons if they wanted to. I don't, if I've been to a pro-life rally, I've been to the Tea Party rally, and I think I've seen 1 million people there. There was 1 million people there, and I would say half of them were carrying.
Yeah.
At this rally,
like Second Amendment carrying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they were there. It was to protect themselves or protect the president. It wasn't for to riot.
Did you ever know anybody who wound up being questioned or even jailed in the aftermath of January 6th?
No.
Nobody you've run across that said, like, yeah, man, the FBI came knocking on my door and make sure you stay low key. I mean, nothing like that.
There's been a few. I've ran into more people recently because I've been a little bit more open about me being there. And so I have ran into a few that was there that day, maybe went inside. But I'm just now I'm just now telling people about it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big deal to be able to just talk about it and be open about what's going on.
What are your thoughts? And we got about 2 or 3 minutes here, but what are your thoughts about, of course, you've heard me talk about it already. I don't want to poison the well, so to speak. I imagine you've got your own thoughts about the way the January 6th Commission handled things, the way the media handled things. In your opinion, was the narrative that was being put out the same as the narrative you saw that day?
No, not even close.
Okay.
No.
So, how so?
It was a peaceful protest. There was, with that many people, they could have taken over whatever they wanted. Honestly, if that's what their intentions were. Their intentions were to be there to support our country, to be patriotic, and to say we don't believe in the vote, the count, but not to instill violence. That was never. I never had that feeling there from everyone that I was around. Yeah, people were stirred up. There was guys climbing trees so they could get a better view of Trump or to hear better early in the morning before we went to the Capitol. But they were just boys. They were just stirred up and needed to do something because we were waiting, and they've been there so early. But there was nothing that said, "Hey, we're going to go in here and create violence on the people that are making decisions for our country."
Yeah. Well, it's a narrative I hope never gets repeated.
Right.
I don't care which side. I don't care who's in charge. If somebody screws up and does something wrong, they deserve the accountability. And some of the ones who committed violent acts did not get pardons, and that's just going to be the way it is. But I hope we never see again the level of weaponization of government against people who merely showed up. That to me was the egregious. The fact that you had to wait several years before you felt like you could even tell your story in public kind of says a lot. You know what I'm saying?
It does.
Well, David Robinson, man, it's been great to get a chance to hang out with you for a bit. Thank you for telling us your story. Thanks for letting us be the first one to hear it. And blessings on you and your family. Hey, go sell some ads for Rightside. How about that?
That's right. Let's get it done.
All right, listen, we're going to take a break right now, but text me in your thoughts, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. January 6th, what do you think? Pro or con? I'd love to hear it. David Robinson, thanks again, brother.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll be right back. Call of the governor. He can call you into special session. Are you going to keep running away? Is that the way this works? We can't ever go home. We can't see our wives and children anymore, our families, our jobs, all the things. You know, it's ridiculous. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton threatened to go hunt down Democrats, said they ought to be arrested. Well, guess what? Greg Abbott said he will take action to, quote, remove missing Democrats from membership in the Texas House if they're not back by Monday afternoon. The truancy ends now, he said. Apparently, there is a clause within the Texas state law that does allow for those who abandon their posts, or abdicating the duties of their office to be removed from office. And there, you know what? Maybe they went to Illinois. You and I were talking about why they go to Illinois. It may have something to do with extradition authority. So Abbott says he will use extradition authority to demand the return to Texas of any potential out-of-state felons, because apparently it's a felony to abandon your office under Texas state law. Interesting. So they went to a state where they knew there ain't no way in the world they'd ever get extradited. That's what they did. They went to a safe haven. They found a sanctuary state for abandoning your post, lawmakers. Now, Texas Governor Greg Abbott just texted in about the last 30 minutes, or tweeted, I'm sorry. And he posted, he said, Texas governor orders the arrest of Democrats who fled the state. That's the governor himself tweeting that. You also said you've got a sound clip from the Texas state legislature. They convened for the purpose of calling the roll, determining there was no quorum, immediately said they had to adjourn, but not until something else happened. You want to play it? All right, go ahead and play it.
Motion prevails. The sergeant at arms and any officers appointed by her are directed to send for all absentees whose attendance is not excused for the purposes of securing and maintaining their attendance under warrant of arrest if necessary until further order of the House.
Under warrant of arrest if necessary. Well, so they ain't playing. First of all, Democrats, let me just give you some advice. You cannot claim to be bold if you're running away. It doesn't work like that. You're not allowed to stake your claim on that being a sign of your courage and bravery. That's a misnomer. That is absolutely asinine. That is jackassery of the highest order. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and ask for the jackassery sound effect now too, if you don't mind. Just hit me some jackassery. Thank you. You are well off into jackassery land. You are screaming as panicans and acting as jackasseries at every given turn. We're watching kakistocracy. I'm using all the words. I'm using all the famous right side words. Kakistocracy, the governance of a governing body by the least competent of its citizens. All right. So the bottom line is this: Democrats are scared, so they ran, and it's shameful. Absolutely shameful.
I do have to ask though: Are you
Ask me a
worried?
question.
Are you worried that this may set a precedent that, you know, if Texas is saying, well, you know, you're I guess technically supposed to do it after every census, but really you really can just do it however you want. Is that just the Texas Constitution that says that, or is that going to set a precedent where like California is like, okay, we'll just redraw districts anytime we want, and it's just going to start a domino effect? I guess is Texas doing it to gain more Republican seats or whatever? Is that worth what it's going to do long term? Could it do more damage than anything?
Right now, Texas doesn't care.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's...
Texas has weighed the odds and said we're in. So, first of all, I'll tell you, it will depend upon every state's constitution.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because I've never read the provision with that thought in mind, but I don't know that Alabama's would allow that. I think it's going to be every state's constitution is going to determine whether they can or not. And you can't just change a constitution. You can't go into the state house and quickly pass a bill that changes the constitution. It requires a referendum of the people. So a constitutional change in Alabama would require first a vote of the legislature, then a signature of the governor, followed by a vote of the people at the ballot box to say whether you do or don't want that enacted in our constitution. So even if Alabama wanted to change it to be able to do that, assuming we don't already have it, it wouldn't be a simple, quick process.
So, and I also see that and I think, is Texas that worried that they may lose red seat? Like, I'm like, why would they, like, if they're comfortable? I don't know. I guess I'm just worried that them doing this is going to cause more damage long term than anything.
Oh, I'm not denying that. I'm not denying it. This is a mid-cycle review or redistricting or reapportionment of the lines. It's not normal. This is not what usually happens. So I get that part. But then again, and we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. Hey, David didn't leave yet. He's got a mission in life, and we got to help him fulfill this. David, there is somebody very important you need to talk to real quick. You're on the air, brother. Say it. What do you got?
Shout out to my wife, Elizabeth. She was there with me January 6th. She's a hard worker, a great mom, and she's the love of my life.
Well, there you go. All right. We just saved you from a world of whooping when you got home. And I got to ask you though, while you're here, I got one question I meant to. JP even said during the break, oh, we should have asked him. And I meant to. There's a lot of talk about where they're, for lack of a better term, where they're feds in the crowd, where they're plainclothes people in the crowd that were sort of in the mix and maybe even sort of helping incite people to move on down. Did you see anybody in the crowd you look at and go, were there feds? Is what I'm trying to say.
There was a couple of people that I was there. It seemed like they were on a job. They weren't there for a protest. They were there working. They were just a little bit more conscientious of what was going on. Looking
Heads
around,
on a swivel, looking around.
Yes, and then probably inciting things. It just kind of seemed like, hey, they're, all of a sudden, this one person that wasn't saying anything or doing anything, now they're, leading a line, or they're yelling. Let's. They're getting it going, getting riled up or something.
So some of the ones you thought were feds, you looked like they were leading people to the door?
Possibly.
Wow. There was that one guy we always hear about, Ray Epps. You see a lot of news stories about him. I don't know anything about him. I don't know whether he's a fed or not, but he had some crazy, suspicious behaviors. Did you ever see him in the crowd?
I might have.
I mean, 1 million people. I mean, did you see him?
JP mentioned his name earlier, and I don't know if I've seen much about him on the news or kind of paid enough attention to it, but I might have seen him. He might be in some of my videos or photos. It depends on where he started or which door he went in. I don't know if everybody went into the door that I was looking at, or the back door of the.
Well, have you been back to the Capitol since those days? Have you been back to DC?
I don't know. I don't remember. No, I don't think I have.
Well, it's to me, it's one of my favorite places.
Yes.
I mean, I really do believe that the U.S. Capitol is a special place.
Yes.
I mean, and the Capitol, not all of DC. When I was at the Pentagon, I used to go for long walks and jogs around the mall area, and just think about how much this history is in this place.
Yes.
And how it's changed the world. At the same time, it is not a golden calf.
Right.
It's not. America is not the building. It's the notion of who we are. And it's the rights that we have in the Constitution. But that being said, DC is still a special place. Looking back on it, are you glad you went that day, or would you not go if you knew what you know now?
I'm glad I went, because I didn't want anything else to steer my thoughts of that day.
Yeah.
As far as any media, any news coverage, I wanted it to be my own. And what I saw is what I saw. And there's no, there's nothing that can try to, say, hey, it wasn't a million people. It was. Because we heard stories the next day that it was only 100,000. That's not even close.
Yeah. Well, scripturally speaking, Acts chapter 4, Peter and John are told to quit talking in the name of Jesus, and Peter's answer was, I cannot stop speaking what I've seen and heard.
That's right.
And meaning, man has his own story. Nobody can take that away from him. And granted, that's about faith, but I think it applies to other things. You were there.
Yes.
You know what you saw, you know what you heard, and no one can take that away from you.
That's good. DC holds a special place. I spent many days and nights there just walking around praying. I believe there was a David's tent used to be there 24/7.
Mm.
And my wife actually sang there one night. She was invited to sing between 11 and 1 a.m. And I got outside, and I know the Secret Service could see me on the top. I started praying I know they were listening to me. So I started praying for them. And I was like, I know y'all can hear me. I bless you. I know your jobs are hard, but I bless you and your family. And I pray protection over you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. Well, David Robinson, man, thanks for coming in and sharing your thoughts and your personal experiences. And we appreciate you, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you much. You're a good American.
Thank you.
All right, listen, I got a couple of text messages. I'll grab them real quick. I see Tom with all the kids is checking in. And he is saying, let's see, Tom with all the kids. By the way, David, Tom with all the kids has like, I don't know, 42 kids of his own.
17, I think.
17,
actually.
okay.
Yeah.
But Tom with all the kids from Huntsville says, I was in DC that day, but only on my flight home from Afghanistan. All right. Thank you, Tom. Yellow Dog Mike is one of our great haters. Yellow Dog, he says, keep on listening, brother. One day you're going to come around. But he says, your justification for the J6 rioters is Orwellian propaganda. Thank you. Thank you very much, Yellow Dog. Thank you. You continue to be stuck in your narrative. It's okay, brother. You can come back to the light. And then Jerry from Decatur says, remember when Joe Biden said they don't know the facts from the truth? I nearly laughed my tail off. Hey, Joe, the facts are the truth. Typical Democrats trying to make something out of nothing, as they did the January 6th airborne. Jerry, airborne all the way, man. Appreciate you. All right, folks, we're taking a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Those life moments yesterday. Charlene and I have been weighing some decision making, the kind that lends itself to prayer and deliberate thinking, the kind of decisions you make on faith and hopefully with wise counsel. But yesterday afternoon, I decided to reach out to my adult kids and ask their opinions on the matter before us. So I did. And both of them gave me great, mature, unvarnished insights, and I was immediately thankful. But I was thankful for not just the fact that I could ask their opinions, but that I could trust their opinions. I mean, think about it. How many people can say that they would turn to their own kids for advice and trust in the words that were spoken? It's a blessing, to be sure. I mean, there was a time when they were raised with Charlene and I making all the decisions for them, right? When to eat, when to sleep, what to wear. All the yeses and the nos of life were decided by us as parents, and that's reasonable. Then came the days, though, when we could leave them to some of their own decision-making on small things, and then bigger things, and then responsibilities, and then setbacks, and then responsibilities again. And then came the day when we trusted them to be out of the house and on their own. And I've said many times that God has blessed us with kids who turned out better than us. And it's okay. It's actually expected for parents to do the parenting, to make the decisions, to hover a bit. to raise up a child in the way they should go, in the belief that when they grow older, they will not depart from it. That's our role as parents, but that is not, oh, by the way, the role of government, not by a stretch. Government provides some essential services, some order and protection and infrastructure. But government should never get over the line into what we sometimes refer to as the nanny state. So let's be very careful. Be very, very careful. Life is hard and decisions are scary. I get that. But don't worry. The government's here to protect you from yourself, right? At least that's what far too many in government believe. Ronald Reagan once famously said the scariest words you could ever hear were, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And listen, there's a role for government. Like I said a moment ago, I'm not so libertarian in my leanings or anarchist in my antipathy towards government that I don't see the need for good governance. And notice that I said good governance. I mean, constitutional governance is designed to ensure life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness by providing for things like the common defense, supporting the general welfare, ensuring domestic tranquility. It's called essential services like police and fire departments, infrastructure, sewage and water, waste disposal. All of that is essential. But when we get into trouble is when government has so much time and money on its hands that it feels like it's necessary to find new ways to justify its own existence. And there's some nanny state jackassery in government that they don't know when to stop. I'm just telling you. A story came out not long ago about Majority Leader Chuck Schumer pushing for a vote that no one called for on a topic that no one saw coming to fill a need that no one has. Schumer and his Democrat colleagues embarked on a classic round of political kabuki theater to pass a bill to enforce a right to contraceptive care. Let that sink in. I mean, never mind the economy, never mind the southern border, never mind the U.S. hostages being held in Gaza. The Democrats wanted to make sure that Americans know they can have birth control pills and condoms whenever they darn well want them, because maybe people don't know that they can already have contraceptives whenever they want them. Because, you know, life is scary without the government getting involved to solve the problems you didn't know you had. So I have to ask, what did we do about contraception before the year 2024 when Democrats held their press conference and cast their votes? I'll tell you what we did. We took personal responsibility. But the nanny state does not thrive on your personal responsibility. It does not. Nanny state jackassery is oftentimes an attempt by big government jackasses to justify their existence without which there would be a loss of their jobs. I mean, if you believed for a second you could make your decisions about your life without their intervention, you silly Americans. You don't know how to buy birth control at the drugstore. But don't worry, we're from the government and we're here to help. And that, my friends, is an example, yes, of the nanny state. That sense by elected officials and bureaucrats that they can operate with impunity. Because in their own estimation, they are very important. Consequences are not for them. Consequences are for those silly constituents who don't know how important their actions are. Yep, nanny state jackassery. It's a nanny state attitude that causes government to exceed its authority. And sometimes, you know, it's laughable. Like, remember when Mayor Bloomberg up in New York City in 2012 decided he was going to ban large sodas in restaurants? Well, that'll fix obesity. Or how about the town of Fort Lee, New Jersey? Has a no texting and walking law, $85 fine. I get it, but is that really government's role? A few years ago, the state of Tennessee passed a no saggy pants law, really, with penalties and all. No saggy pants. Did they make exceptions for plumbers? About Minnetonka, Minnesota, apparently got tired of cleaning up the streets, passed an ordinance banning. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Like covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show, goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn. It's right across the border from there to Fort Benning, Georgia. Yes, indeed. Oh, by the way, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. That's our radio footprint. A lot of y'all in radio land, but then there's a whole bunch of y'all in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web and live streaming the show every single day. We know because we can see the numbers. Live streaming the show every day on places like YouTube and X and Rumble and Facebook and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then, oh, by the way, all you podcasters who catch it after the fact, bottom line is thank you. No matter where you get the show, thank you. Thank you for the fact that you do. Thank you for the fact that you basically make it worthwhile for us to be here doing this. We appreciate it. We know. On the social media side, what do you got?
Oh yeah, we got David from Bucky's on the YouTube saying that,
Oh.
that was a fascinating point of view on January 6th. And then we got Mike from Harvest on the Rumble. He says, "I'm curious who sent the alert out about the National Guard."
Yeah, I am too. I don't think I'd ever heard that. I mean, maybe I had just forgot about
It
it.
was, I mean, I assume it was like the Apple. I don't know who does the alerts on Apple, like Amber Alerts, whatever that is.
It's triggered by like an EMA.
Yeah, so I don't know. It is weird that he said, he didn't see much police around in the first place. He saw some, I guess, security in spots, but that it was almost kind of like no police to the National Guard, which didn't even get deployed really in the first place. Nancy Pelosi. But yeah, it's a lot of this stuff is weird, but
it's a weird day to me. It almost feels like, it ranks up there in some ways with, I mean, that sounds crazy, but like that day with the things that we don't know and the things we keep finding out because they withheld so much over time. That day feels like Area 51. It feels like, who shot John F. Kennedy. It feels like, like what happened to Jimmy Hoffa. There's so many, it feels like one of those like urban legend mysteries now that's got stuff that we'll never know.
Well, it was during a time where just overall
everything felt uncertain.
And it's even looking back at that time, it's like bizarro world of the George Floyd riots, COVID in general, but then that election and then the J6 stuff just stinks to high heaven. It's a lot of it doesn't add, and I even told you off the air, a lot of it I don't go too deep on a lot of conspiracy theories or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, the Ray Epps stuff, the stuff he talked about when people who are just quiet and not doing anything, all of a sudden they're leading the charge. It makes me question.
The day reeks.
Yes.
That year reeked.
Yeah, it did. Definitely.
2020 to early 2021 was just a bizarre time, man. Hey, I got to say, though, I'm going to wrap this up, but thank you all very much. Text it in. I'd love to know your thoughts. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. I will say this. The left can't let it go. Well, you may say, Phil, you're spending your time on it. I am. For clarity, I am. Because here's what's happening. All of a sudden, we are now seeing the left constantly bringing it up again. Why? Well, they're determined that the Russiagate collusion grand jury being convened and everything else around the whole Russiagate hoax, collapsing around their ears, they're determined right now to constantly use January 6th as the foil. How can Trump claim to do this when he's the one who incited So how do I know? Because I'm watching what they're saying. I mean, look at this. I got a piece from Town Hall. It's about The View. The View. Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Anna Navarro, all of them, the whole crowd. Alyssa Farah Griffin. They are off the air now. Interesting. They're off the air on what's known as a hiatus, which means they could come back. Are they? I don't know. But it came after Joy Behar went on an unhinged anti-Trump rant, which started with, first of all, who tried to overthrow the government on January 6th? Who was that again? That was not Obama. I mean, she went on a Trump rant, but it kicked off with January 6th. They're still steeped in the narrative. That's why I think it's important. I thought it was important for David to be able to tell his story, but I think it's also important that we know what happened and that as they bring it up, oh, by the way, we can see clearly what the facts really are. How about this? I've got a piece here also. Is this Town Hall? I think it was. Let's see. No, yeah, Town Hall also. Dateline July 25th. That's a few days ago. And it talks about the fact that we're looking for accountability in the Russiagate thing. And it talks about the fact that so many people in America see that a justice needs to be done, but that too often the Democrats get away with stuff. And we also watched, and don't anybody try to say otherwise, we watched the BLM riots. We watched as, strange and crazy things happened surrounding the election. We watched as there was any number of upheavals. We watched as COVID was shutting down society and people were being kicked out of the military. We watched all of it. And then at the same time, you got the January 6th Commission. More than 1,500 Americans, many of them improperly charged. Some of them charged with seditious conspiracy to overthrow the government. Some of those included, like, grandmothers and people who weren't even at the Capitol. 4 of them committed suicide because of the charges being brought against them for which they felt like their lives were being ruined. Who's the grandmother? Well, how about this? I'll take this story off the Colorado Sun. Her name was Rebecca Lorenz. You may have heard of her. Rebecca Lorenz, known as the J6 praying grandma. And she is. She's a grandmother. And she went down there. Her January 6th conduct was peaceful, nonviolent, no property damage. She complied with all the conditions of her release after she was arrested because she was indeed arrested. Get this, 72-year-old great-grandmother operates a bed and breakfast near Colorado Springs, but she gave no apologies for being there on that day, so the judge felt like there was not enough remorse. The prosecutors, they wanted her to go to jail for 10 months. Go to jail for 10 months, followed by a year of supervised release and 60 more hours of community service. They also wanted a stiff penalty. The judge, at the very least, didn't give her the 10 months they were talking about, but she was required to serve for 4 misdemeanor accounts. 4 misdemeanors. She got a $103,000 fine. 4 misdemeanors, $103,000 fine. Prosecutors were actually asking for what they called a substantial fine. She's been working to raise the money to be able to pay that off, but she received a Trump pardon, I believe. Then you have this guy, Guy Reffitt. Guy Reffitt, Headline USA, has a piece. Well, he was not even there, but he received a 7-year prison sentence. So he's not there because they said that he was inciting it. He was in the background. He was the one pushing people on social media and that kind of stuff. But a federal judge sentenced a nonviolent J6 offender to 7 years in prison, even though he did not even enter the Capitol during the riot. Guy Reffitt was found guilty on March 8th of 2022 on several counts having to do with civil disorder, disrupting an official proceeding, and was given a 7-year sentence because he had a firearm with him that day, and they knew it. He had a firearm with him that day, and he chose to go to trial. He did not want to take a plea bargain. He said, I'm innocent. I'm not going to do it. I won't take a plea bargain. Well, that resulted in 7 years. Prosecution wanted a terrorism enhancement added to it because he was armed. Why was he armed? Well, he's a card-carrying, Second Amendment believing permit carrier. That being said, 7 years, and he wasn't in the building. But then you had the Supreme Court step in, like I said during my monologue earlier. Then you had people beginning to weigh in and say, you can't keep saying insurrection when it's not, because it doesn't measure up under the law that way. And then you had Trump issue pardons. Listen, do I have an opinion on this? You think? I typically have opinions. But I also have the opinion of is we should never, ever again see a time, ever, in which the weight of the U.S. government is thrown upon people so decidedly in askew of what it should be. I understand that the FBI has a mission. I applaud the FBI's mission. I love the FBI as an organization. I think the world of the Department of Justice. I love the rule of law. But what we saw was not that. What we saw was a political witch hunt that went way beyond the scale of those who did perpetrate some measure of violence and needed to be brought to justice. When you have a praying grandmother, 72 years old, given a sentence like that, my gosh. When you have 1,500 people sought out around the nation because they showed up and the cell phone tower pinged, I'm just telling you, that was not at all what should have happened. It was beyond the pale. It was made worse by the fact that a January 6th commission kept all the video footage. Think about that. What buildings in the world could possibly have more surveillance camera footage than our U.S. Capitol? And yet, what were you seeing? Very little. Very, very little. Anytime an attorney is supposed to defend someone of their crimes or the alleged crimes, they're supposed to be given the evidence. If there's exculpatory evidence, there's a requirement that it be presented. How much of that footage was actually presented to the defendants to show whether they did or did not have evil intent when they walked in that building? They didn't. Now, if they shouldn't have been there, okay. But you know what? Walking around taking selfies, it doesn't mean go ruin their lives. You watch people burn down whole city blocks during the BLM riots, and there was no justice. In fact, it was mocked by the press as being largely peaceful. On January 6th, I hope we never see it repeated, ever again. Let's take a break. We're going to change the topic. We'll come right back and talk about some Democrats and things that they are saying that you look at and go, why are you in office? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Vehicles with fines up to $2,000. Muddy vehicles. Okay. Maryland actually has statewide ordinances in effect requiring the use of sunscreen at summer camps for kids. Yep, because sunburn prevention is a surefire role of government, don't you know? How about San Francisco when they grinched out back in 2011 and passed a ban on toys and McDonald's Happy Meals? Unless, of course, they met strict nutritional guidelines with like fruits and vegetables. Kid you not. And then there's Hilton Head, South Carolina, apparently had an issue with rats, passed an ordinance banning trash in cars to keep from attracting those rascally rodents. Trash in cars. They would have to look in your personal vehicle to determine if you had trash. $500 fine, 30 days in jail. Yep. 2008, California Governor Schwarzenegger then went full-on Terminator and he signed a law banning the use of trans fats to fry foods in the state. You heard me. Fried food must be made healthier, but in the end, it's still fried. One of my other favorites from California came when the law was passed mandating that the hotel industry had to use fitted sheets on the bottom layer of bedding because it was going to save back injuries from those who had to do hospital corners because they treat the rooms and clean them. They also required long-handled tools for bathroom cleaning to prevent back injuries. Have they ever tried to put on a fitted sheet? I mean, that's work in itself. But look, don't think for a second that all the things I'm talking about are just out there somewhere else. Like the nanny state doesn't exist anywhere but other places, because it does exist right here in Red State, Alabama. Oh yeah, yes indeed. How about this? Effective on January 1st of 2024, remember that? The Huntsville City Council, Huntsville, approved a plan foisted upon us by Councilman David Little that far exceeds state law. Police can now issue citations if you are seen with a phone in your hand while driving. The holding of the phone can be the primary offense. It means that you can drive the speed limit, use your blinker, stop at all the stop signs, and still be pulled over because you were on the phone telling your wife what you were picking up for dinner. The first conviction, $50 fine. The second can be up to $100. A third within 24 months, $150 and up to 10 days in jail for a cell phone in your hands. But y'all, if your cell phone rap sheet keeps going, you could face up to 30 days in jail. The Huntsville government, in its wisdom, has presumed guilt by virtue of touching a phone. I mean, never mind that you were driving well at the time, right? And don't worry, by the way, you can hold a coffee cup or a book or surf the playlist on your dash or turn up your music so loud you can't hear the traffic or just eat a biscuit on the way to the office. But by God, don't touch that phone as you cross over the invisible line from Madison to Huntsville. Look, these are all real. They are. And they are also somewhat humorous. They're also examples of big government jackasses getting into office and forgetting their role. Government should provide essential services. Government should not become the nanny state, babysitting your every move like a helicopter mom at a PTA bake sale. Government that gets so far into your personal business that it creates additional issues and then blames you for the problems they created, all while ostensibly taking such action for the greater good, that's a nanny state. That's a nanny state justifying its own existence. It is un-American insofar as our rights and our freedoms are concerned. Yeah, so when you see it, tell them you don't need a nanny, thank you. You've got this covered. Nanny state jackassery, please say hello to Rightside ruffians. We got this. So on the mortgage broker side of you, you still do that though, right?
Oh yeah, every day. Yes, sir.
I said broker, it's banker.
But no difference. I help families get into mortgages. I help people realize the dream of home ownership and then understand that they can reorganize their debt. Like right now, there's a lot of families who are struggling because, as you've probably heard, credit card debt is at an all-time high. Yeah. At the end of January, a report came out that said that America had $1.21 trillion in credit card debt. It's never been that high.
No.
And if you take a look from the pandemic to now, it's almost like a hockey stick. It's just through the roof. And I think the reason that is because people are hesitant to refinance out of their low-rate mortgages they locked down during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So they'll say things to me, Phil, like, well, you know, I'm rate sensitive, so I'm not going to refinance at a greater rate. But I almost challenge that, Phil, respectfully, to say, how rate sensitive are you really if you've maxed out a credit card at 31%?
Yeah.
Like once you owe it, it's up to you to figure out how to pay it back. And not only is the interest rate you have on a credit card astronomically high, but the interest you pay on a credit card is not tax deductible, whereas the interest you pay on a mortgage is. So if you could get a cheaper payment and a greater tax deduction, improve your credit score, give yourself more room on that credit card in case something disastrous happens, and lower your monthly payments in the process, how do you lose? But a lot of families just don't really understand that, and they're just taught to think, well, I got a great rate on the mortgage, I need to leave that alone. But it's impeding their ability to take their kids to the movies.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just, I mean, like, man, giving you all the truth you can slap on a bumper sticker. So I thought I was leaving the topic, but apparently I'm not yet. So there's a couple of text messages here I will go ahead and address. Steve from Madison just checked in. He said, Phil, I'm sorry I have to throw the BS flag here that people that beat up on cops should never have been pardoned from prison. Never. Okay. I hear you. And I don't try to dissuade you from your opinion, except that I have to address it now that you've texted the show. So I agree with the idea that people who committed violent acts deserve to be sentenced, especially those who beat up on cops. Now, I will also say this. You got to keep in mind that allegations for which someone has pled not guilty, but then are tried, is still someone who pled not guilty to the crime. So there's that. The other piece of this, though, is President Donald Trump even said, and I've got a copy of an article here from the Daily Wire with one of the attorneys who represented like dozens of the J6 defendants, including that QAnon shaman guy. He literally said that they worked as defense counsel. They worked over and over again to try and get this change of venue on the trials. They were all the prosecution was demanding they all be tried within the DC circuit, which meant that, in their opinion, the defense felt like in every case they were never going to get a fair trial. That's an extremely liberal venue with extremely liberal judges and an extremely liberal jury pool. And the executive order that Trump issued pardoning people convicted, there were 14 commutations in it. In other words, they were people who had already served time if they committed a violent act. They were some of the first ones convicted. And Trump said multiple times, he said that, where's that part in the article? Let me find it real quick so I just quote it directly. He said, I will say this, they've been in jail for a long time already. I see murderers in this country get 2 years, 1 year, maybe no time. They've been in jail for a long time. These people have been destroyed. What they've done to these people is outrageous. And the sense was that there was no way for them to get what many thought was a fair trial in a venue that was so pitted against them as a whole. So there's that. Then you look at the Biden administration that literally went into just mass pardon roll and like commuted the sentences of every person on federal death row. Why? Was it individual? Was it a thing? No, it was a policy of just, we don't like the death penalty, so all those went away. Well, those are people who had committed murder. Those are people who had truly taken lives, but they were on death row and now they're not because Joe Biden's auto pen decided to sign a pardon for them. So I get what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I completely agree. Violence against anybody, especially our law enforcement, not acceptable. But the belief was that they had pled not guilty, many of them. They had already served time, many of them, and the pardons were after the fact. So there's that.
And I'll say too, I think the whole point of talking to David is not to refute that there were people there who did bad things like beat up cops.
Right. That's a good point.
And I'll steal from Dan Bongino, like he says, they want to tell you a story instead of the story. Like, yeah, there were instances there of people doing stuff they weren't supposed to. However, there was also thousands of people like David who were just there to voice their opinion, which is their right to free speech, say they didn't agree with the vote, wanted to support President Trump. David shouldn't have to feel like he has to go in hiding for years just because he was there to support the president.
Exactly right.
It's painting the full picture of that. Not everyone who was there was attacking cops and doing stuff they shouldn't have. 99% of them were just there exercising their right to free speech, and they shouldn't be demonized like they were.
And like
So,
you said, just being there for patriotic purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Well said. Yeah, I think that's a very prescient statement that he had to. He has never told his story in public because of the fear that was being put out.
For exercising
for being there.
For exercising his freedom of speech.
That's right. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, what we saw on January 6th and the aftermath was a government and tyranny. In my opinion, he says, if the conservatives were as righteous as liberals, we would have tore this country apart. Yeah. Karen from Hickson, Tennessee says, Phil and staff, great interview about the truth about January 6th. Thank you, and know that you are appreciated always. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate you. And then a text that I missed way earlier, reaching way back in the show, was John from Huntsville. How'd I miss this one? On the monologue, which was about January 6th. He says, Phil, spectacular monologue. Also, did you hear that a second minor earthquake in 3 days has hit New York City? I did not. He said, by the way, JP, the start of college football is only 17 days away. 17 days away.
I could smell it.
Mark from Red Bay says the Democrats' chickens are coming home to roost and they are not liking it. Yeah, it's never fun when the rabbit gets the gun, is what I keep saying lately. I got to quit saying that. I used to hate that phrase when the Democrats used it in Montgomery, but it came back to me recently.
They're just getting a taste of their own medicine.
They are. They absolutely are. I may go down a different road. I had planned on doing a dipper. One of the things I don't want to do is I don't want this show to be something that leaves you with this sense of things are bad. I don't ever want to be that. I said before when we were finishing up with David, I love Washington, D.C. That place is as liberal as the day is long. As a city, it is a liberal venue. It is a beautiful place. It is the capital of my country. And so we just talked about something that I did not expect to take 2 hours. We just spent the first 2 hours of the show talking about one topic. I think I'm going to switch gears and poke some fun at government here in a minute. I was going to do a dipper on what I call Dems who hate America. We could talk about it. We could talk about Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, and we could talk about what happened down in Mexico in the last few days when a elected representative went down there and said she much prefers her own citizenship in Guatemala to being a U.S. congresswoman. Come on. Well, I don't know why Dems seem to hate America. They're the party that seems to be filled up with people that just always want to break it or denounce it. That being said, that ain't what this show's about. So I think I'm going to call an audible, JP. I'm skipping straight forward to dipper number 3. What do you think about that?
That's a bit bold there. But I guess it's your show. So
it's a bold move, Cotton.
Hold your horses, everybody. We're fast forward and past 2 to 3.
All right. Listen, we'll take a break here momentarily, but while we do, just know that I'll be getting ready, skipping forward in my notes to dipper number 3. We'll talk about the nanny state. We'll talk about what happens when a governmental action is just like they think it's okay to get way up in your business. And I got some crazy stories of things that are happening. We'll talk about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. I mean it. We'll be right back.
Ice cream or just life.
So you've actually done this for a bit. I can tell by the way you verbalize it. It
Sure.
comes right on out. And I guess too, let me ask you this, because I'm going to chase a rabbit for a second. We all watched the economy over the last 4 years, just the cycles of just craziness, 40-year high inflation, COVID pandemic set the rates low, trying to get the economy back, stimulation money being thrown in. It was madness.
Yes.
It was cats and dogs living together. It was all of it. Are you seeing people returning to the table, though? I mean, that conversation you said you can have with people on a regular basis. I do a lot of real estate law. You do the other side of it. You're the lender side. Are you seeing people coming back to the table, so to speak?
A little bit. I mean, the people who are in a bad place or life has dictated that they need to make a move.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, maybe there's a divorce or a loved one passes away or there's an empty nester or someone retires or they lose their job. Those are the type of people who are making moves right now, but people are still buying houses. People are starting a new career and they're excited to have a fresh new start in a new town or a new market. And their life has dictated that they have to buy something else. But I look at here locally, you think about Huntsville, Alabama, there's over 500 jobs that have been announced, and there's rumors it's more, that will be coming from the FBI down to Huntsville. I mean, Kash Patel was just there last week saying we hope to bring a lot more than just those 500 jobs. Well, that means there's 500 families, moms and dads, usually a two-family income or two-income household, they've now got to relocate their whole life to Huntsville, Alabama. Now, you and I know Huntsville's awesome, but this wasn't anybody in DC's original plan.
No.
Like, they have jobs, like probably only one of those people work for the FBI, but the other person has a job there.
They're also going to find out they can buy a lot more house here than they can in DC.
Absolutely.
And
But
some of them never owned a house, and now they'll be able to.
But are people going to rush to buy their existing house in DC? See, that's the problem.
Yeah,
is
that's a good
they've
point.
got to sell a house there at the same time everybody else is leaving DC. So now there's more inventory than ever before. Are they going to be upside down? Yes, their dollar goes further in Huntsville than it does DC. But if they've still got a mortgage hanging around up there, boy, it's a real challenge. So we've got to get some sort of relief with interest rates. I believe this firmly. As interest rates go, so does the economy.
Yeah.
You know, if we can get real estate moving again, our economy will fix itself. So much of what our economy in America is based on is our single biggest asset. And for most families, that's their house. And so they're not really putting that big asset into play. The economy isn't at full scale. So I think there's pent up. Think about if you had a crank and a water hose. That's what we've got right now.
Yeah.
You've got a ton of folks who want to buy another home. Their current home no longer suits their needs, but they're not going to let go of this great rate. And they know that home sales are slowing. I mean, there's more listings on the market. There's more inventory than there's been in a while. But by the time, we unkink that hose with low interest rates, we're going to be back in a 2020 situation where we have more buyers than we have inventory. Those prices will come back. So I do think now, if you're a savvy investor or if you're willing to see what's coming, interest rate relief will be there. You can still get great deals on homes right now. If you wait until the rates are better, you will have missed it. I mean, you remember how crazy that was? Multiple offers the same day. It was bananas.
We were doing 5, 6, 7 closings a week in my small firm, and it was in a market, by the way, where I'm at right now that is not Huntsville, Alabama,
Right.
Which is not a depressed market by any stretch, but the refinance especially was going through the roof with the rates.
Yes.
All right, so let me ask you this: I can hear the passion in your voice. It's obvious you love what you do and you're a professional at what you do. Which one's more fun, this or the podcasting wrestling side of your life?
Well, listen, that's hard to answer.
Just me and you talking. Which one's more fun?
The figuring out how to structure a deal is fun. Laughing and cutting up with my buddies, telling inappropriate jokes to make people laugh about old wrestling stories, that is more fun.
Yeah.
But there's nothing more rewarding than feeling like you had a meaningful impact on someone's life.
Yeah.
And I realized that we can do that with the mortgage business. I mean, I routinely help people experience, a $1,500 a month savings. I mean, that's like they had a second really nice part-time job, because that's like net dollars. So think about how much you would have to earn in order to bring home $1,500. Like, that allows families to do more for their kids, for their moms, for their dads, be more, active in their community. Just relief and peace of mind. That's what it's about.
Heck, I've done everything else. Why don't I run for the U.S. Senate?
Lost my mind.
Dude, I ran for the state Senate, and I had a 4-county race. You're all over 67 counties, state of Alabama. First foray into politics is U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
And I mean, you didn't prevail, but you sure made a splash. So first thing I'm going to ask you, before I even ask you any thoughts on it, is: would you do it again? Would you? If somebody came to you and said, "Hey, Mike, we got this office we want you to run for," would you like draw down on them, or would you say, "I'll consider that"?
Well, I've answered this question many times, especially recently with, obviously coach's decision.
Right.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very, very unlikely that I would do anything. And it would take a special set of circumstances. I am by no means an expert, but I think I understand a little bit how it works now. And I understand when the mission is actually unachievable, which, as it turns out, for me it was, and I just didn't know it.
Any regrets on running?
So no regrets, because one of the things I went into it with is I didn't want to be sitting on my couch 5 years later saying, man, I could have won that. What if? I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
But if I knew what I know now, I wouldn't do it again. Does that make sense?
It does.
I don't regret doing it because I didn't know what I know
Hindsight's
now.
20/20.
Yes.
Yeah.
But man, what an eye-opening experience. And unfortunately, I don't have a good taste in my mouth over how it all played out.
You told me that right after the race.
Yeah.
You and I were at a veterans event,
Yeah.
and I said, "Would you do it again?" You said, "Wrong time to ask,"
Yeah. Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, most folks do sit on their couch, though. Most folks do sit on their couch and don't even consider. And by the way, it's got to be a calling. It's got to be a calling to run. It's got to be a calling to serve.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I thought I could make a difference. I thought I was what most people say they want to see, which is not a career politician, someone with life experiences,
Yeah.
All those things. And I ramp up pretty quick. You don't get into the 160th and succeed there by being an average person.
Nope.
You have to be able to ramp up pretty quick. You don't end up with a business with 700 people in 12 years and make the Inc. 5,000 list 12 times by being an average. I mean, and we started in the worst possible year ever, which was 2008.
Oh,
Everybody
wow.
said, "Why are you doing this? This is
Yeah.
a terrible time."
International. Oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3. Hour number 3 on a Taco Tuesday. That means you're close to tacos right now. Hour number 3 on a Taco Tuesday will get you all the way to go home time. I'm going to switch gears. I am pulling an audible. I am skipping what I had down as Dipper number 2. I'm going to Dipper number 3. Why? Well, because I can, but also because I want to take a different mood. Now, granted, it's still going to be a conservative bent, and granted, I've still got some things to say about government, but some of this is just like almost funny. And so I'm going to go there. Nanny state politics. What does that mean? Nanny state politics. I actually pulled a piece. I think I've got it in my stack here. I hope I do. What is a nanny state? Well, a nanny state is actually a term that was, I think it was birthed out of Great Britain. That it actually became a thing as a part of the political genre. Yeah, there it is. Nanny state's a term first coined back in Great Britain, making the circulation of speeches and editorials in the 1960s. It refers to a government so big that it becomes the caretaker for all of our needs and ensures that we are protected from ourselves. No longer content to provide just essential services, a nanny state believes it knows best and will help us in our feeble attempts to get by in life. By the way, that's from a piece that I wrote in 2023. It was called Alabama, a Nanny State. It was published in 2023. So, I mean, I got examples, and some of y'all probably have examples. But yes, there are places where government has a purpose, right? We talked about that a little bit yesterday. Yes, there are places where government truly has purpose. It's designed. I know it is. And I believe that scripturally speaking, government is not ignored. It is not to be, derided, but it is not also to be so overblown that it makes itself the God of your life, right? Jesus even said, "Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's." He was saying, if you got to do it, you got to do it. And government can say, you may have to do it. Now, but is there a time and a place for checks and balances? Oh, by golly, yes, there is. Listen, I saw it at the state level. So I was in the state Senate for 8 years. I can't tell you how many times something would happen, and I'd be sitting at my spot in the right side of the chamber, which is where I sat. I sat towards the far right, and something would come up, and I would look up, and I'd say, "What are they doing? What are they talking about? What bill is this? When did this get on the calendar? How did somebody bring this up?" Well, it was usually somebody trying to jump in and get something done, like by interposing on what we call the calendar of the day. And then there were the things that came up. Sometimes you look at them and go, "Well, I'm not letting that happen." I'll never forget. So State Senator Vivian Figures, very liberal from Mobile, liberal Democrat. She and I actually got along really well. We sat next to each other in Judiciary Committee. I mean, I didn't mind her as a person, but we certainly never saw eye to eye on policy. Her son is actually Congressman Shamari Figures from Central Alabama. So Vivian Figures has been in the Senate forever. She, somewhere along the line, developed this like passion against the idea of anyone who smokes cigarettes. And so she is on a tirade. Every year she brought up a bill to ban cigarettes somewhere else. And at some point I have to look at it and go, I think cigarettes are a bad idea. Me personally, I don't like the smell of them. Me personally, I don't want to smoke them. Me personally, I'm not going to tell other people they can't. You can't in my house. How about that? You're not going to smoke in my car. How about that? You want to smoke at your house in your car? I'm not going to stop you. That's your role. That's your decision. That's not the role of government. Well, Vivian Figures was a nanny state person. And I'll never forget one time she goes up there and she's got a bill allegedly to ban cigarettes in all workplaces. And I went up and I said, could you define workplaces because your bill is rather generic? And she said, why would you say that? And I said, because all it says is workplace. What is that? And she goes, well, you and I both know what a workplace is. And I said, hang on a second. Let me ask you a question. What if there's a groundskeeper at my apartment complex and I'm sitting on my balcony smoking a cigarette and that guy is out there trimming the bushes nearby? That's his workplace. Am I not allowed to smoke a cigarette on my balcony anymore? She goes, well, now you're being silly. I said, I'm not being silly. I guarantee it'll come up. I said, how about this? What if somebody has saved up their money and they've decided they can't wait to open their own cigar bar? That's technically a workplace. Are the employees going to be able to bring an action because the cigar bar, which is why it was formed, is now not allowed to have smoke? I mean, is that where we're going right now? Well, that's just wrong. And then I said, wait, one more. How about this? There's somebody working on the side of the road. They're filling a pothole. I'm sitting in my car at the red light, smoking a cigarette with the window down. Am I blowing smoke into their workplace? Do I have to stop when I pull up at the red light? Where does this end? And she got mad and walked away. She dropped her bill and walked away. But I went at it like that for like 5 or 10 minutes and I kept naming examples. That's what a nanny state politician is trying to do. There's no way of knowing how far her bill would have gone. So we had to stop it while we had the chance.
Me personally, if I'm getting, concrete work done in my house or something, I want the guy getting out of the truck, old boy with a cigarette in his mouth, calloused hands, salt of the earth guy. I know that's going to be a good job.
He's going to lay concrete for
Yeah,
you.
I would, dude. It's just ridiculous.
Just don't leave your butts in my yard.
No, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, I want to see my construction guy walking out with a cigarette. That's going to be a good job.
It goes on and on and on. The reason why I brought that up was I saw 2 articles. One came out of a Commonwealth Beacon. So these folks are like, up in Massachusetts. They are sometimes almost like behind enemy lines. Now, Massachusetts has come a long way, but Massachusetts lawmakers right now, according to a story that came out 2 days ago, are trying to take away civil liberties, says the Commonwealth Beacon, but a growing number of cities and towns are saying no. So it points out that what they're doing is state legislators want to impose a complete ban on tobacco and nicotine products. All tobacco, all nicotine. That means you can't even do little Zen pouches, is that what they're called? Zen pouches. You can't have put a dip in. You can't have anything that has nicotine in it. You certainly can't smoke a cigar. You can't smoke a cigarette. They're trying to ban it statewide. At the same time, this state is now allowing cannabis products to be legally purchased. They voted in new measures of gambling. They are the birthplace of democracy, and yet they are treading on the ability of people to make free decisions. And by the way, I'm not a fan of smoking. I'm not an apologist for big tobacco. I'm not. I don't smoke. But you know what? I recognize that you don't need somebody trying to tell you where a legal product can or cannot be used. And that's the point here. Were you about to say something else? No?
No, I was just going to agree. It's ridiculous that, like you said, I feel like every cannabis product under the sun is legal in Alabama except just actual marijuana. So it's like, just the hypocrisy is like, you guys, you're tying yourselves up in a knot, but you're just doing this to just control people. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
You're not making any sense.
Yeah, that's now. Did you see Australia?
I did not.
I worry about Australia. What happened to Australia?
Okay, the people of Australia are great. The government of Australia is the problem.
You know what? If the government of Australia had its way, there would have never been a Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, for a while there, he was like a folk hero, and he wasn't even real. Everybody wanted to be Crocodile Dundee. Everybody wanted to carry a big knife. Everybody wanted to be the guy who could live in the outback and yet woo the pretty lady. I mean, the hero. Crocodile Dundee. Well, not no mo. Here's Nanny State for you. Now, this is not here. This is there. But keep in mind, the sentiment is everywhere. Fox News has a piece that came out 2 days ago. An Australian state of Victoria has now announced that it is banning all machetes. Machetes. That's a knife. Just a big old long knife. It's to combat crime, and they're setting up what they're calling machete disposal bins. It's like an amnesty box. You can you can walk up and turn in your machete, and it's okay.
Is this banning machetes just in public spaces, or just machetes are outlawed altogether?
I am looking at it right now. The law ban begins September 1st. You may not own, carry, use, buy, or sell a machete without a valid exemption under the law. And anybody who violates it will be a violation of a criminal offense, and they may face up to 2 years in jail with a fine of 47,000 Australian dollars, which is like 31,000 American dollars.
Well, criminals are always bound to follow the law. So I'm glad machetes are actually going to be outlawed. Not. They're just going to get in the criminals' hands.
You know what they're really going to do? They're going to create these drop boxes full of machetes so that the bad guys know where to go to break into something to get a bunch of machetes.
They clearly did not think into this.
So Victoria Premier Jacinta Allen said, these knives destroy lives, so we're taking them off the streets. I reckon what's going to happen, though, is the bad guys are going to turn to hammers.
Yep.
And then after they take up all the hammers, then the bad guys are going to turn to cricket bats because it is Australia.
And then they're going to have to ban fists, or everybody's going to cut off their fists. You can't.
Now you got to wear soft gloves everywhere you go. This is what nanny states do, y'all. This is what nanny states do. I got more. We'll take a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
Point being, I didn't have a lot of political experience, but I can guarantee I could have figured it out. I mean, there are some very intelligent, capable, good people there, but there's also some that are the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
In fact, there are some who don't deserve the office, and some you look at them and go, how'd you even get the office? Yeah. As we sit here right now, too, one of the things that's really struck me in sort of preparing for today, aside from all the things we've talked about, and your love of country, your new country, your love of family, is you have a real strong heart for Vietnam veterans.
I do. Oh my goodness. So
my dad did 2 tours in Vietnam, 2 very difficult tours.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever met my dad or not, but
I did not.
He would have liked to heard your story.
Oh.
But tell me about your heart for
this
vets.
all started in high school. The same friend that prayed for me has a dad that served in Vietnam.
Okay.
And for a long time, I knew he had a difficult time, still struggling. And the first time I met him, I went to him and thanked him for his service. And I watched him gotten so emotional, and he started crying, and we hugged, and Phil, he thought that I hate him.
Mm.
And that just broke my heart. He really thought that I hated him. And I said, how can I hate you? You were just a young man, leaving your country, leaving your family, leaving the comfort of America to go fight for people you don't know because you believe that everybody deserves to be free. No, I don't hate you. And that moment has stayed with me for so long. And that's just that helped embolden me to walk up to strangers, Vietnam veterans now that you see them, walking.
Wear the hat.
So you knew they're Vietnam veterans. And I just walk up to them. And I just looked at them, and I just want to thank them for all that they tried to do for the Vietnamese people. And I watched every single one of them just broke down. And I knew then that all the things I went through life, God has a purpose and a plan for me. And that's my ministry, is to serve the Vietnam veterans, because I knew they didn't come home to a very grateful nation. And that a lot of them, most of them probably never heard of a Vietnamese person thanking them for what they tried to do.
No kidding. A lot of them didn't hear about Americans thanking them for what they do.
I know, and I didn't know about the how they were treated until I hear stories from them.
Yeah.
Most of them were, Phil. Most of them was like spit on. Most of them were.
And my dad told that story about his own experience.
Yeah, food thrown at them and accused them of being baby murderers. I had one veteran told me that he was injured in Vietnam and he came back and he were received so badly that he tells people that his injury was motorcycle accident. Wow. And he hid all of his time in Vietnam. And the burden that they had carried for so many years, you know, being called a bad guy, my heart breaks for them. And I just felt like they all need to hear how appreciative they are.
Welcome home.
And welcome them home. I think Vietnam veterans are a group of veterans that are so cohesive, because when they came home, only their brothers can understand what all they went through. And their brothers are the only one that they shared what they've been through with. I have so many wives and daughters of Vietnam veterans that comes up to me and said, my husband have never talked about his time in Vietnam until he met you.
So thank you, by the way. So what, practically speaking, is your ministry besides? And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Man, saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, so I'll never forget, like some of the nanny state stuff I look at is like, okay, there was a situation back in like 2017, I believe it was. Was it 2017? Hang on a second. I got to look at my notes real quick. 2017, I think it's 2012 was Bloomberg. Oh yeah, 2012, Bloomberg. Remember that guy? Mayor of New York at the time. He wanted to ban all 16-ounce sugary beverages. No sugary beverages over 16 ounces. Is anybody aware of the fact you could buy 2 8-ounce beverages and suddenly have 16 ounces? Just saying.
Phil, stop. You're not supposed to be logical in politics most of the time.
It's nanny state people. They don't think through these things. And then 2017, there was a situation in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. They were going through a crime epidemic, and so local businesses in the downtown area who didn't want to move started putting up bulletproof plexiglass barriers to protect cashiers. You've seen them like in gas stations. Sometimes you walk up and there's a plexiglass barrier protecting the cashiers at these all-night kiosks or bodegas. And there's one local official, Councilwoman Cindy Bass, of course she was a Democrat, who complained that it created an indignity. And she did not want patrons having to be served in, quote, she called certain neighborhoods behind plexiglass. So what did she do? Rather than work on the crime, she passed or tried to get passed an ordinance to ban plexiglass. That was her solution. Don't deal with the crime. Just take away the thing that tells people the crime is here. She also, by the way, tried to ban ski masks. Just saying. But I talked about Huntsville yesterday. I mean, come on, Huntsville, Alabama, reddest state in the nation, Huntsville, Alabama. And we've got a city ordinance that says you can't hold a phone in your hand while you're driving. I understand the texting and driving thing. I get it. I do. I was there in Montgomery when that ordinance or that law was passed. That's different. What if you're talking on the phone? You're watching the road, you're steering, you're paying attention to the rules of the road, you're stopping at the stop signs, you're not speeding, but you're holding a phone to your ear. That is a ticketable offense now in Huntsville. Why? Because it just is. They can pull you over, not as a secondary offense, not as what they call an inchoate offense. I mean, it blends in. No. They can arrest you because they saw you drive by and the phone was in your hands. That, my friends, is a nanny state. What about this? Remember the McCloskeys? Do you remember them?
I don't think so.
The McCloskeys. Do you remember during the BLM riots? The McCloskeys were in St. Louis, and they were the rich lawyer couple who BLM rioters began crossing through their yard. And so they came out of their house, and he's standing there with an AR-15, and she's got a pistol in her hand. Neither one of them looked like they know what to do with them. I mean, she was almost like cartoonish the way she was holding the pistol like this. She was holding it up like this as she's looking at the crowd. He was holding his AR-15. They were not exactly what I would call super intimidating, except that they had firearms. They had BLM rioters in their yard that I think had just broken the gate to their gated neighborhood to walk through. They were the ones who got arrested. They were the ones who got arrested. But then on top of that, the authorities seized their firearms. And oh, by the way, that was back in 2020. It's taken him 3 lawsuits, 2 trips to the Court of Appeals, and 1,847 days to finally get his AR-15 back. That came out yesterday, or maybe day before. The McCloskeys, because the government thought it was just too scary to allow a guy to have a magazine-fed weapon. How dare you brandish it in your own doorway while bad guys are walking through your yard after breaking down the gate to your neighborhood. By the way, he was charged with 4th-degree assault, and she was charged with harassment. He didn't assault anybody. He didn't. And they pled down to fines. They finally paid the fines to be done. But yeah, she had her little 380 pistol. He had his AR-15, and it took them all this time for the nanny state to give back their weapons. They had them in storage, and they actually showed him. He actually had somebody video while he got his box back out of storage to get it. Last one I'll say for the break, just as an example, is that sometimes I feel like we're losing Europe. The idea that you can't have any ability to speak freely over in Europe, and the UK is one of the worst, actually. I got a piece here from August 1st. So what, 4 days ago? They have now what they call their Online Safety Act. Ostensibly, it would keep children away from porn, except that it really doesn't. What it really does is it gives the government the ability to decide whether your posts are considered safe or reasonable. And so now your social media posts and any and all things related to the things you say online are somehow suspect and potentially going to be reviewed by the government, because the Online Safety Act now gives them the ability to decide whether you should or should not be able to hear certain things because you might be scared by them or someone else might be scared by them in there.
Remember when they threatened to come over here and extradite people from America to England because they're,
I did a whole thing on that,
posting memes about this is like history is almost repeating itself, because our founding fathers, that's literally, I mean, they were making printing presses, making fun of their English, the English leaders at that time. So like, have fun with that. Try it out. I dare you, and it's not going to make the problem any better. All you're going to do is piss people off. It's going to make those problems even worse.
Listen, try that in Texas, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Try that in Alabama for that matter. Not going to work. All right, listen, we're about to take a break. We've got about 30 seconds to the break, but I will just go ahead and say some of the text messages coming in. I will get to them as soon as we get back. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. We had a whole discussion about January 6th stuff today with David Robinson being in studio, who was there and gave us his perspective of being there. And I'd like your thoughts on it. I'd also like your thoughts on nanny state stuff. Oh, some of y'all are texting in already. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
Yeah, brother. Hopefully my wife's listening to the live stream. You make me sound awesome.
Speaking of wife, I'm gonna let you get personal with the crowd for a minute. They always hear the stump speeches. All right. You guys always hear the stump speeches. I'm going to run for office so that I can fix taxes or whatever else. You might want to know what this guy's like at home. So tell them the story about how you told your future father-in-law you wanted to ask your wife to marry you.
Oh yeah. That's, well, I was in sniper school at the time, and kind of my decision, I'd met my wife before and we've been dating for a while, obviously. And I was like, you know what, if I pass sniper school, because sniper school attrition rate for the SEAL teams is about 60% at the time. That's what they're running. So you're already a SEAL, and they send you to NSW sniper school, and only about 40% of the guys that are already SEALs make it through our sniper school. So I was like, you know what? If I make it through sniper school, I could shoot pretty good and all that. But I mean, it ain't easy. You know, we're shooting 11-inch moving targets at 800 meters. You know, that's not skill, that's luck a lot of times. So I thought, if I can pass this, I'll ask Lauren to marry me. If I don't, I won't.
If I can pass this, I'll ask Lauren.
That's where it started at, because I could invite her dad up to the family shoot, and we were out there shooting sniper guns, and I asked her dad. I said, Greg, you know, I'm finishing sniper school. I'm gonna invite Lauren out to San Diego, and I'm gonna ask her to marry me if it's okay with you. And he looked at me as he's out there. I think we were fishing at the time. Actually, I don't think we we're actually shooting guns, but anyway, he looked at me and said, well, son, that's a question I reckon you better ask her. And he didn't care nothing about it. Want to get back to shooting guns.
Shooting guns and fishing.
Yeah, that's right.
Have my daughter. You're right in. No, that's a great story. And you guys have, what, 3 daughters?
3 daughters, yeah. 3 daughters. 9, well, the 9-year-old will be 10 at the end of September. So 10, 7, and 3.
All right. So before I go any further, you did pass sniper school, which meant you were allowed to ask her to marry you.
That's right.
And she did. And it ain't easy being a team wife, but she's a SEAL team wife, and but she's also been there with you in every other decision you've made. So let me ask you in front of all of them, is this a joint decision between you and your wife to run for Senate?
Yeah, I mean, it. Like you said, every decision when you're married is a joint decision. If you're in this room and you're married, that is your most important physical relationship. Now, my wife, hopefully she's here. You hear that, babe? So, but it's not always, my wife would say, I don't always act that way, right? And I'm sure you're sitting in this room and some of y'all would say, hey, we don't always act that way. But my most important thing is my wife, and making sure that we as one flesh, as God has outlined in Scripture, that we as one flesh make that decision. And if we're working against each other, if the flesh is fighting with each other, then you're never going to be able to be effective in any decision you make. So, yes, it is both of our decision is actually her that as we spent time praying about it, I couldn't get an answer from the Lord on what I should do. I mean, I spent a lot of time praying. I could not get an answer from the Lord. Hey, yeah, run for Senate, because it's the last thing. I can tell everybody in this room, it's the last thing that I want to do. I do not want to be a U.S. Senator. I don't want to go to Washington, D.C., but it is the service. It is truly the service that I desire. I do desire the service to this nation, to this state that it could be. My wife is of the same thought process. She doesn't want to share me with D.C. She said, I think you're going to win this. She said, that's the scary part, because I don't want to share you with Washington, D.C. I don't want the girls to have to share you with Washington, D.C., because they're not moving there. So my heart's going to be here. They're going to stay here at home. But she said, I think this is what we're supposed to do. And I said, well, we're going to have to go with that, because the only answer I was getting was, ask your wife, do what she says. And that was it.
We did have a conversation back before he announced, and you told me that the advice you were given was, ask your wife.
That's what I got from the Lord, and I even confirmed it with my granddaddy. To tell you how I mean, and you know this, how I feel about politics. I was ashamed to tell my granddaddy that I was.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This one, I mean to say, goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we now call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia, Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. And oh, by the way, that's just the radio. And then there's all of y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web and live streaming the show. Live streaming, because you can do that no matter where you are. You can live stream places like Facebook and X and YouTube and Rumble and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And a bunch of y'all do that, a bunch of y'all. And then we see a ton of you people out there actually doing it as a podcast, picking it up after the fact and listening to it. And listen, here's the bottom line. Hear me say this. You are much loved and greatly appreciated. We do not do what we do for any other reason except for y'all. So thank you very much for making our day by tuning in some way, and we appreciate you. I got a bunch of text messages that I'm going to be jumping on. I got to make a couple of quick announcements. So this Thursday, I have a guest in studio. Ernie Yarbrough is going to be hosting for me on Tuesday, because that's another day that I am flying to New York City to do live on CNN that night at 9 p.m. on News Night with Abby Phillip. I'll be sitting in the conservative seat. Huh? We'll see who they panel me up with this time. Last time I was sitting right next to one of the ladies from The View. And but yeah, this is coming Thursday at 9 p.m. Central. So I would encourage y'all to watch and pray. And Charlene's already said she may have to get medication before that night again. So
I feel like that's the definition of Adventures in Woke World. You going to CNN. The definition.
You know what, though? I really enjoyed it. And I got to say, they were extremely gracious, super nice folks. I had a great time last time, and apparently I didn't screw up, because they've called me back for several more times, including this coming Thursday. So, yep, I'll be in New York City Thursday. Please give my brethren, Ernie Yarbrough, all your attention on Thursday afternoon, and then I'll be on that night on CNN. And then one more thing is coming up pretty soon is the Eagle Forum of Alabama annual dinner. I did the emceeing for that last year, had an amazing time, and they've asked me back again. So that's coming up in a few weeks. I'll keep you posted on the date. But if you're familiar with Dr. Carol Swain, she's an amazing speaker, and she's somebody who years ago saw the light on her Democrat Party and realized that they were doing nothing that she wanted to be a part of, and she left that, and she's become a prolific national speaker on all the things that ruffians stand for. But Dr. Carol Swain is the speaker that night, and I'll be the MC. So if you want to see the Eagle Forum dinner, it's in Birmingham. It's worth going to, and I would encourage you, check it out on their website and see me there. That being said, I do believe that Jeff Rowe from Indiana is already on the phone. So let me jump on in and see what he's got. Jeff Rowe, how you doing, buddy?
I'm heading through Nashville at a slow rate of speed.
Well,
Imagine that.
Well, so the hammer's not down per se, but you're still moving forward at the very least.
The brake pedal's been used a lot more anyway.
Oh gosh. Well, what do you think about all this stuff, man? We talked about January 6th a lot.
What's that, Phil? I'm sorry.
No. I'm sorry. You said I was thinking, what do you think about the stuff with January 6th? And you started jumping on CNN, I believe.
Oh, yeah. When you go on CNN, you may be surrounded by the people from The View, since they got a lot more time on their hands nowadays.
It's possible. I don't know where they are, if they're coming back. I personally don't miss them being on the airways, but they were a source of punditry. I will say that.
I would give anything to see you sit next to Joey Behar. That would be the best the best media I believe I could ever watch.
But Jeff, I thought you were my friend. What's going on, man? Wishing that on me?
Well, I mean, she's unarmed, I don't think you would have too much trouble taking her on. At least I hope not.
I go in there like Rush Limbaugh used to say, with half my brain tied behind my back.
I believe you could probably tie more than that back there, because she ain't got anything.
Oh gosh. Hey, what'd you think about that interview we had with David Robinson about January 6th earlier?
I think that was great. I think we need to hear more stuff like that. But like I say, it's my position that basically those people were in the right to start with. They may not had when your constitutional rights are taken away and you have no recourse to courts or anything else to change things, then the Constitution is pretty clear on what to do, whether you like it or not.
Well, I think the reality is the way they were treated. The Constitution was thrown out the window. I mean, some of them, the due process did not seem to be there for them. And there was also a lot, and I've not seen pictures, but I've heard incredible reports about the conditions under which some of them were being detained, sometimes for months on end. with no contact with their families. It was an awful situation.
Yeah, we had a government in tyranny basically, and that's what's so sad, because like I say, if we'd have been had the temperament of the Democrats, we'd have been tearing this nation completely apart by that time. So that's what would happen if we did something similar to them.
Well, that's part of the angst. And I also say too, I would say this: Democrats kind of set the stage for this. Democrats allowed their own people to riot in Portland at the federal courthouse with Antifa. They allowed them to riot with BLM in major cities all over the nation. They demanded people kneel down in their presence. And then when the conservative side, when the right side of the aisle got mad, then they started throwing people in jail. That to me is one of the most galling aspects of all of it.
Yeah, I mean, we should have just declared that they was Democrats invading the Capitol, and they would have left them alone.
They should have all carried BLM flags. They would have invited in.
Yeah, go under a false flag.
Remember when Nancy Pelosi? Maybe I didn't mean to do that, but Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer had all the members of the Democrat caucus kneel down in the rotunda of the Capitol.
Yeah,
I
remember.
It was and they all wore their like an African scarf and then knelt down with their masks on. By the way.
Oh yeah. I mean, we got to punch all the woke buttons. We got to make it look like we're just right on ball with everything there.
Well, the virtue signaling was that was probably some of the most significant virtue signaling I have ever seen. But again, I look at it and think, okay, if it was not something you were going to pursue for people who actually burn down buildings, then why did you upend the lives of people? And I'll tell you why. It was because they needed to make an example, because they wanted to make sure they were really going for Donald Trump, and they were willing to take down anybody who was in the way of the narrative that Donald Trump was trying to incite the riot.
I mean, they just hate conservatism, period. So that's you can't fix crazy, you can't fix stupid. So those people are, like I say, everybody with this Trump derangement syndrome, it is a real thing. I mean, to see these people get triggered the way they do, I don't care what a conservative or a liberal says about me, nothing would trigger me. So,
well, you may have an ounce more maturity than they do too. There's that.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, brother. Be safe on the road, man. We will chat with you soon. Yeah, what? You got another topic? Go right ahead.
On the nanny state, I'm sorry. Did you hear today that you talk about the nanny state?
Yeah.
64,000 pounds of butter is being recalled because it is not got the label of having contained milk on the label as an allergen.
Where did you read this? Where is that? Look at
just all you gotta do is just look at butter recall.
Butter recall.
4,000 pounds because it's not labeled as having milk. I mean, I think we're going to have to start labeling the water bottles as caution, made round if you inhale this enough. We need to Darwin some of these people. If you don't know that butter contains milk, you just may not be smart enough to live.
I understand that if you're not careful, you might miss the warning label that some peanut butter does contain peanuts.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It really ticked me off whenever they started coming out with the zero sugar stuff. Coke Zero and Pepsi Zero and everything.
Yeah.
They had to change the label as zero sugar because people were asking, does this contain sugar? They did not know. They literally changed the labels because people were not smart enough to figure out that this is 0 calorie. I wonder if that contains sugar.
Oh my gosh.
By the way, I can confirm.
Oh, he's looking up your story. Where are you seeing that?
Well, I'm seeing this one is on realsimple.com, but there's many other stories of it. 64,800 pounds of it
butter.
because of butter because they did not properly disclose there's milk.
What? God, is it from one dairy? There's somebody going out of business because of this.
It was voluntarily initiated by Bunge North America Incorporated, the Missouri-based company.
I wonder how much is 64,000 pounds of, I mean, we're talking about 32 tons there.
Yeah.
32 tons of butter.
By the way, they're 1 pound packages just each. So that's
Oh, God.
64, almost 65,000 packages of butter.
Well, it's a good, oh gosh. Okay. Never mind. Nanny state. All right.
That'd be a good 3 semi loads, basically.
Oh, you got it measured out.
25 tons per load. Yeah.
All right, dude. Now I got to let you go. I got to take a break. You be safe on the road, man. I will talk to you tomorrow. All right.
See you, bud.
All
Have
right.
a good one.
Take care. Butter. My gosh. All right. Take the break, JP. We'll take the last break of the day here on a Taco Tuesday. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
For U.S. Senator, the one that lives up there by, Knocklow Falls by you. I was ashamed to tell him that. I was like, he's not going to like this. He loved the SEAL thing, all that. He's not going to like this. And he said, well, son, it would be an honor to even say your grandson ran for it. No, you don't even have to win it, which was surprising to me. I wouldn't expect that. But he said, what are you asking me for? Ask your wife, do what she says. And when he said that, I said, okay, Lord, you've confirmed it for me, and that's what we decided to do.
Well, I heard several things in there about hearing from the Lord, about praying. So if you wouldn't mind, just tell them real quickly where your relationship with the Lord really originated.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing about, man. We just heard SEAL, obviously husband, wife. Yeah, the SEAL was a cool thing. The jobs we do, law enforcement, human trafficking, that's all neat stuff, and it's important stuff. Running for Senate, that's important. We talked about politics earlier. I was kind of surprised to hear a church talk as much about politics as y'all's church has. That's great, and those are important things. But your most important relationship, my most important physical relationship, wife and girls. But more important even than that is what's eternal, and that's my relationship with Jesus. So by that I mean, because in political season, everybody's a Christian in Alabama. That's what I've learned. What that actually means is I believe that Jesus came, lived a perfect life, died, rose again on the third day for my sins and yours, and it's through him we're set free. And if you don't know him, ask God to reveal himself to you, and I promise you he'll do it tonight, and it will be in the person of Jesus Christ, and you can do one or two things. You can believe the lie that Pilate believed and wash your hands and say, I'm innocent of this man's blood, or you can believe who he is, Lord and Savior, the person of Jesus Christ, who that is. That's what I believe. That's what I mean by Christian. And I asked Christ in my heart when I was 6 years old in my mom and dad's bedroom in a trailer in Gaston, Alabama.
And it's good stuff, man. By the way, I got to tell you something he said to me that was so off the cuff a minute ago. You probably don't realize how quickly you jabbed me. But he walks up on the stage, and I said, hey, dude. And he goes, hey, man. I said, by the way, I'm here to tell you I'm running against you. And he looks at me and he goes, I thought Rangers lead the way. Why are you behind? I mean,
RLTW, baby.
He didn't even skip a beat. All right, so good-natured ribbing, but deep respect. You were in the SEAL teams. It is no small thing to get through buds to be a SEAL. I'll just say that for you. You don't have to say it. I'll say it for you. Deep respect. I've been out to Coronado on TDY. The water's always cold. By the way, in San Diego, it is always freezing. But
it snowed during my Hell Week, flurried on the beach.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. But that being said, you became a member of an organization that is deeply respected around the world for the combat skills it taught you. But the thing, like for instance, when I think I told you during our podcast, when I went through Ranger School, I learned all the things about small unit tactics and patrolling and mountaineering and all the things. But I learned a lot about myself. I learned about things about myself I didn't like. I learned about things that I didn't know were there. And then later on, looking back, I realized it did things for me that I didn't realize it was going to do. So your time as a SEAL, aside from your military experience, which is incredible, what did you gain from it as an individual?
Personally, what I gained from it as an individual is it taught me, because I believe this is something that you're taught. This is not something that you're necessarily born with, some maybe more than others, but it taught me perseverance, right? And we know what Scripture tells us. I mean, through perseverance comes what? Faith, right? But it taught me real perseverance, real suffering, physical stuff. You have people all the time say, "Oh, I could do the mental part, but I couldn't do the physical part." You don't get it. It is so physical, it becomes mental. That's the problem with it. Like it's pain that you I still deal with. I mean, how 20 something years down the road, 20 years down the road, there's issues that I still have just from training, just from going through BUD/S training. So it taught me perseverance.
You're going to need it in politics.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing with politics, what I've learned is what people ask, it's not that hard. It's just a hassle. That is the one thing that I would say in politics. It hasn't been that hard. It is just hassle. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Can't we? I wish we could get physical, but all we do is sit here and talk.
You know what, though? I will say this. So I told him when we did our podcast, there's two things that every former SEAL does is write a book or run for office, one or the other. And you've done both.
I did both. Yeah. Although I wrote a pamphlet. It's only like 38 pages long.
Okay, so that works. All right, but so here you are running for office. You've got a life that proves you understand and gain the value of perseverance. You don't quit easy. You got a mission mindset. You've been in the trenches fighting human trafficking. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. You heard me. That's what we say, and that's what we mean. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. I got to tell you, this nanny state thing, part of it is there are nanny state politicians, and part of it is there are lawyers. And I am one, so I can say that. And I was a politician too, so I can say that. But I'll be honest with you, I'm the one in both of those genres, in both of those professions, that tries to push back on that stuff. I like to say I'm a lawyer, but I'm not litigious. I like to say I was a politician, but I'm not all into politics. But I mean, like I'll never forget talking about warning labels. Jeff brought up the thing about so that was a real story. Where'd you find that story, by the way? I want to check that out later, just so I know where it is. Do you know?
Well, let me I really just Googled a butter recall, and I'm seeing something on ale.com.
Ale.com has it?
Seeing something on Real Simple, Food and Wine, News Nation, Blavity News, whatever that is. So yeah. If you just look up butter recall, you'll still see it.
32 tons of butter are being recalled because they didn't have a warning label. I'll never forget reading some of the most egregious warning labels that are out there. Like one of them was on an iron, like you iron your clothes with.
Yeah.
The iron on the box, it said, "Do not iron while naked."
Yeah.
Oh, you got to know.
Well,
hang on. Somebody think about where the ironing board is, right around waist level. Somebody was ironing and was naked, and that didn't go well.
It's almost like they have to put a disclaimer on this item is hot.
Yes.
It's like,
please,
like put a label on like the stove, like these irons are hot.
It's just, it's like, Bob from Madison has checked it in. It says, speaking of labeling requirements, 10-pound bags of ice have nutritional panels. What? Do they really? 10-pound bags of ice have nutritional panels on them? Is it like 0.00000 down the line?
I guess so. Actually, do water bottles have nutritional labels on them too? Probably.
Hang on. I got one right here. There's no nutritional label on this one, but it does have ingredients. It does. Nutritional source. It says for nutritional. Oh, you know what? It says for nutritional source or bottled water quality, you can go to, and it gives you a website. Oh, yay. John from Huntsville checking in says, Phil and JP and Jeff from Indiana all get an A++ for their equally outstanding performance. It means today's winner with a perfect A++ is David Robinson for speaking his truth and standing up for what's right. Thank you, John. John from Huntsville giving us the grades. Dave from Capshaw says, many years ago, Rush Limbaugh got what ruled? Oriole ruled. What does that mean? When they misunderstood what he was saying and he talked I don't know. Man, you are voice texting. It is not coming through very well.
Something about Rush Limbaugh saying that women were farting while driving, farting with a D. It says farting means applying makeup.
Oh. Oriole ruled. What's that? Is that did he mean to say that, or is that
you lost me there? I don't know.
Maybe he meant overruled. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he meant overruled.
Okay. Bud from Danville says, Phil, I thought all of Alabama had hands-free laws since June 15th. I don't. If I'm not aware of that. I think this far exceeds anything to do, though, with the state law. My recollection was the Huntsville ordinance went way beyond. By the way, if it's hands-free across the state of Alabama, I'm in trouble.
It is.
Stop it.
So it says
When did this happen?
Alabama, if you go to drivesafealabama.org, it says as of June 15th, 2023, it is illegal to hold a cell phone or any other electronic device while driving in Alabama.
Stop it.
Yep.
Wait, okay, hang on a second. Is that a primary offense? Do you know?
I do not know.
Because one of the things about Huntsville is they can pull you over just if they see it as you go by.
First offense, $50 and a point on your license. A third, you could lose your license. Yeah. So if you get up to 3, you could lose your license.
Good Lord. I live in a nanny state.
You do. We do.
God almighty. Bert from Owens Crossroads. Hey, Bert, how you doing? He says, so on the Huntsville City no cell phone ordinance, if my passenger was to get a picture of a Huntsville PD officer using their cell phone instead of the radio or the keypad computer, would that be cause for citizen's arrest? And I believed we heard yesterday there's a carve out for police officers.
Yeah, specifically like mounted monitors, I believe it was. Like the computer monitors that they have when they drive.
Yeah, but also for phones.
Oh, for
because
phones
sometimes
too?
dispatch calls their phones.
Oh, come on.
I'm just saying. They've been trained how to be safe with a device in their hand. We haven't, JP. It's important you understand that. It's a very strong distinction here. John from Brownsboro says, what constitutes a machete? Talking about the new ordinance in Victoria, Australia. What constitutes a machete? Length, weight, a single-handled grip? How about a broadsword or a katana? I don't live in a jungle, but I still need to clear some brush from time to time. Yeah, it's nuts, man. You know what? And good luck enforcing that, because I look back and think, this is still Australia, right? It's a continent where like everything on that continent wants to kill you. So I'm pretty sure that this is not going to fly. And by the way, don't you remember Crocodile Dundee? He was like the epitome of all things Australia. He's everything about Australian character. He's the strength. And what did he do? He carried a knife it was a Bowie knife that was like, that's not a knife. This is a knife. Remember that? Was that before your time? Way before your time.
It was
Crocodile Dundee.
I was more of a Steve Irwin. That's who I grew up with.
Well, Steve Irwin probably carried a machete.
Yeah, rest in peace.
David.
By the way, I was just going to say 29 states have hands-free laws nationwide.
This is ridiculous. David at Bucky says, Phil, I bet those Aussies feel safer with all the current crime and violence caused by the machetes. Okay. And then Jeff from Indiana did check in earlier and I missed it. Oh, he gave us the 64,000 pounds of butter thing on the I did not see that was there. Okay. Well, I don't know, man. Listen, the bottom line is this. You guys stay on your toes. All right. You don't have to just take this. At some point, you're going to have to look at the city council and say, why are we doing this? You're going to have to look at the state legislator who, eats at your restaurant or goes to your church and say, hey, can I talk to you real quick? What were y'all thinking? I mean, it happened all the time when I was in office. So the end result is the nanny state. The nanny state is really the government looking at you saying, you're not competent to make sound decisions on your own. We need to be there to take care of you. I mean, next thing you know, they're going to be telling you what to eat. Oh, wait, they already do. Next thing you know, they're going to be telling you, whether you're allowed to dress a certain way. Oh, in some places they already do. Next thing you know, they're going to be telling, let's see what I'm saying. Where does it stop? The nanny state is literally the nanny, the one who takes care of the babies in the nursery, right? The nanny state. That's where it is. All right, you guys, maintain your liberty. That's what I'm saying. And don't forget, by the way, there are indeed more of us than there are of them. God is still on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.